No, I didn't. Good evening and welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council on the 28th of November 2022. Acknowledgement of country. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land we're on and meet here today. I would also like to pay my respects to both elders past, present and emerging. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all of those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. All councillors are present tonight. No apologies. Declarations of interest this evening.
I want to declare a declaration of interest, a non-pecuniary one for matter 9.4.2. It's not significant and it's not financial.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Any other declarations of interest? Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of October 2022. Could I have somebody move? They'd be correct. Thank you.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. It's very hard to tell between you. All those in favour?
I wish to speak against the minutes, Mayor Statham.
Councillor Leslie, yes.
I wish to speak against the adoption of the minutes. Council minutes should reflect what happens at council meetings. For example, Councillor McGee and myself were called into order by you on page 9 for talking, and it's recorded. So that happened, and that's fair enough that that's recorded. Why then are questions in the questions on notice section of the agenda not recorded? Without the question, the answer is meaningless. This failure to include in the minutes the question, in my case, with the October meeting, or the questions, all 5 of them asked by Councillor Goodwin at the August meeting, means that the minutes do not accurately reflect what happened at the meeting. I would have dealt with this matter administratively, except that the General Manager chose to answer my query about this, which was sent to all councillors, by only replying to me. So I intend to vote against the minutes, and I will vote against the minutes consistently until, if and when questions are asked questions on notice are asked at a council meeting, and those questions are not included in the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. We're going to note that and we'll move forward. All those in favour of the minutes, please. I'll call a division. Thank you. All those in favour of the minutes. Councillor Leslie is against. The other councillors are for the moving of the last minutes. Thank you. Commemorations and announcements. I would like to wish Brad DeLosa, a local, very well-known local sports person. He's been to Sweden recently and came back home with the 3rd place in the World Still Timber Sports Award. So most of us know Brad, and he's a great young guy with a family, and I think he's certainly put Lithgow on the map for his wonderful timber sports that he takes part in. And some wonderful news came through on Saturday night with the Emirates one and only winning and being announced as the winner of the Hotel Lodge of the Year at Walgan Valley in our local government area for Australia. Congratulations to Tim Stanhope from One and Only. He is the CEO and his amazing staff. We're extremely proud of what Emirates has done for our local government area, and I wish them all the very best in the future. Thank you. On behalf of Lithgow City Council, as Mayor, I would like to express sincere sympathy and condolences to the families who have lost loved ones since the council meeting. I would also like to comment on behalf of the council staff and councillors for all our people living in and around our area, a very Merry Christmas, a prosperous New Year and very good health for next year. It's been a tough year for Lithgow City Council, having approximately 8 natural disasters which the council have had to deal with, and the general manager, and some road closures that is quite disturbing, but there's some good news, I think, perhaps this week on the Walgan Valley Road. So it's been a very big year for our council as well. So best wishes, everyone, and I hope you have a great year ahead. Councillor Marnie?
Just a brief announcement. Just wanted to acknowledge, and I attended on Saturday as the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor, the celebrations of the 30 years of the Lithgow Community Nursery, which I still am quite comfortable saying is the best community nursery between Bondi and Broken Hill in New South Wales. From very humble starts up in the State Mine Gully, which involved a lot of the nursery infrastructure getting burnt in the late 90s due to a fire in the State Mine area. They've occupied the site in Colebrook and put out over 100,000 trees across the landscape at Lake Lyle, Lake Wallace, Thompson Creek Dam, Lake Pillins, and have worked with school programs for years. So I think it's been a great achievement, and just wanted to acknowledge their service both to the community and the environment, as it's largely a community volunteer run organisation. So just want to acknowledge that a milestone.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I was delighted to see so many people there. It's a fantastic community nursery. Moving on to public forum. Any person registered to speak during public forum on matters included in the business paper and registered via the council website prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting will have the opportunity to speak. There will only be 2 speakers for and against on each matter on the business paper. Public forum will be allocated half an hour time in total, and we speak having 3 minutes to speak. A speaker not registered for public forum will have an opportunity to speak on matters on the business paper if time permits. We have one person registered, Kate Hurrell, applicant from 3 Tree Lodge. Thank you, Kate.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Look, I'm just wanting to talk about the DA application for 2A Coldrew Drive, being 3 Tree Lodge. This is a substantial piece of social infrastructure for our community, representing the addition of 11 places or 11 beds. It will be 2 areas of construction, a 4-bed respite unit and a 7-bed extension that will allow multiple types of accommodation, including those for financially disadvantaged people. The project has only been possible through the successful application of a grant in 2021 in July. We were awarded the capital funding and the additional 7 beds. Obviously, since that time, there has been significant increases in construction costs, and the project has now blown from an estimated, I think it's 2.2 to 3.5 million. So it's a $1.3 million escalation, primarily because of the cost to construct and subcontractor costs. That's going to place an extreme pressure on the organisation. We have been working diligently with the Department of Health. We've met with them several times now to try and get some additional funding, because obviously this is an issue that's arisen across all of those that applied for grants in 2020 and 2021. We are still waiting the outcome of that. We've also been working very closely with the developer or the preferred constructor to try and reduce costs around construction methodology and whether we construct concurrently or consecutively. So obviously, if we have to fund the shortfall, that's going to put the project at jeopardy. So we are also seeking tonight not only the approval so that we can move ahead with the project, because obviously there are grant timelines, but also any application or a waiver of fees and charges to try and reduce whatever costs we can. Obviously 1.3 for a not-for-profit organisation is a significant shortfall to be able to find. And particularly when the need for services in this community is huge. We currently have about 50 active people waiting for placement, and in fact today I had to send someone out of town for the end of the respite, even though they needed permanent placement, and that's a recurrent theme. So those 11 beds are critical for the aged care services in this community. It is a significant piece of infrastructure, so we would like Council to approve the DA, but also to give consideration to any waiving of fees or charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Anyone else wishing to speak at public forum tonight? Move on to the Merrill Minute, thank you. We're all well aware Lithgow City Council has been hit by seemingly relentless waves of flood events for the past 12 months. And we are not alone. A total of 126 New South Wales local government areas have been a natural disaster, with declarations being made within the last 12 months, according to the President of Local Government New South Wales, Daria Turley. On the 3rd of November 2022, Local Government New South Wales declared a statewide roads emergency. The declaration, an urgent call for the New South Wales and federal governments to increase their existing road funding commitments in the wake of the floods, comes on the back of an estimated $2.5 billion in road damages and the collapse of the local and regional road network. I call on Lithgow City Council to show our support for this move and wholeheartedly endorse the Local Government New South Wales declaration of statewide road emergency. The declaration has already been publicly supported by a peak regional body, the Country Mayors Association of New South Wales. As part of the statewide road emergency, Local Government Australia New South Wales, the LGA New South Wales and Country Mayors Association for New South Wales are calling for an acceleration and significant increase in funding for the $1.1 billion Fixing Local Roads and Fixing Country Bridges program from the New South Wales Government, a boost in road block grant funding to compensate for the damage to the regional road network from the federal government, new funding to provide councils with plant machinery and skilled workers to expedite road repairs from the federal government. We have faced and may continue to face an unprecedented and unrelenting series of natural disasters that I have seen residents and business owners cleaning up again and again. People isolated, working unable to go to work, and students unable to get to training or school. Add to this very real and immediate concern for our primary producers. The latest rain event has hit at a critical time. Livestock are ready to go to sale and many farmers have crops that need to be moved. The local and regional road network is critically enabling infrastructure. It is absolutely vital to our primary producers and the key keeping affordable food on the table across New South Wales and beyond. Our road network and the road network of shires across the state have experienced vast damage. We are facing a task that is beyond the reasonable scope of any local government authority. The response needs to be proportionate in the massive challenge. We need help. Our country needs help. Our community needs help. Other regional and rural communities across the state and beyond need help. We need to support our peak bodies in their declaration of a statewide road emergency. This is an emergency and it is time to seek help, and by supporting this Merrill Minute, you're endorsing that I write to the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, and the Premier of New South Wales, Dominic Perrottet, calling for immediate action. Could I have somebody please move that? Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
I'd like to speak to it once you finished, Mayor.
Councillor Carmel.
I note in your Merrill Minute, Mayor, that there's an urgent call for the New South Wales and federal governments to increase their existing road funding commitments in the wake of the floods. I concur with that. And we do need a significant increase in fundings for fixing local roads, fixing country bridges, new plant machinery and skilled workers. However, the recommendation simply says that Lithgow City Council joins with Local Government New South Wales and Country Mayors Association of New South Wales in supporting their declaration of a statewide road emergency. However, in the commentary, we are endorsing that you write to both the Prime Minister and the New South Wales Premier calling for immediate action. So my question is, should it not be in the recommendation, and what's going to be the letter that you write?
That will be added to the recommendation, and the letter will be exactly what we're saying. It is a state of emergency. This is an emergency, and we'll be treating that letter just like it is an emergency. it's very clear what we will be asking for. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Goodsell?
I did briefly want to speak to it as well, Mayor.
Certainly.
Announced today as well, just this afternoon, it was thank you to Paul Toole, who'll be placing $315,000 into Council's bank account to fast track fixing potholes, so that'll make some sort of difference. Our rural roads have indeed taken a significant hit. I particularly support dot point 3 for the federal government to support regional councils with additional plant machinery and skilled workers to expedite road repairs, which is beyond the reasonable scope of any local government. Currently, our local residents are significantly impacted with Walden Gap closure for who knows how long, and for many months Browns Gap continues to be closed with direct impacts on families. So hopefully this recommendation will expedite the reopening of regularly utilised roads by our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. That media release must have came out late this afternoon, perhaps, because it was embargoed until now, so that's great news. I did know about it, but that's wonderful news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Statham, and congratulations. You've managed to write a mayoral minute that avoids any criticism of the state government or its handling of these natural disasters. No criticism of the government's cost shifting. 4 emergency declarations costing Lithgow Council $600,000. The cost shifting with regards to the emergency services levy. Cost shifting with regard to the RFS depreciation foisted on council. The mayoral minute talks about natural disasters, but you don't seem to understand this is not just bad luck. These events will continue until the underlying causes are addressed, but in 2 pages of waffle, you don't once mention climate change. Even the Liberal Party has caught up with that, and we can always hope that the National Party might eventually do so. Your minute states that there's an estimated 2.5 billion, that's 2,500 million in road damages and the collapse of the local and regional network. What has the state government provided? Well, we've just heard it's at $315,000, and in a report that I see here in the Village Voice, $15 million fast track to fix roads in central and western New South Wales. $15 million divided amongst the 20 council is less than $2 million a council. That doesn't go anywhere. We're just mucking around at the edges of this. What we really need is someone who's actually prepared to get up and make some loud noises and try and actually get something done and force governments, both state and federal, to actually understand that this cannot be fixed by a mere $2 million per council or $315,000 a council. After all, $315,000 doesn't even pay for the emergency declarations we've had to pay for. And by the way, the Country Mayors Association is not our peak body. Local Government New South Wales is our peak body. And I'm staggered that you would think that the state government does not know that we have a statewide emergency. But then you do know our state member better than I do.
I've been very patient, Councillor Leslie. As you can see, I've got no intention of calling points of order regularly, as Councillor Marnie has suggested. But you're really, you have done something tonight on, there's 3 remarks you've made tonight that are totally incorrect. We're way over 600,000. We're probably more heading towards 800,000 or 900,000. So I don't mind you speaking at all out. I actually quite enjoy it these days, but please get your information correct. I will accept that point of order, thank you. The point of order, Councillor Bryce.
As according to our Code of Meeting Practice, Section 15.11, Section D, for Councillor Marnie, insults, makes unfavourable personal remarks about or imputes improper motives to any other council officials.
I'll accept that. We'll move on, thank you.
Sorry, could I ask who that was who is believed I directed that at?
Can I answer that?
You certainly can.
You said the general manager waffled and they're insults. And the mayor waffled.
Well,
That,
We'll have no discussion on that now, thank you. We will be moving on. Could you please refrain? Excuse me? Please refrain from talking anymore. Thank you. We're moving on. Page 7, please. Staff reports. 9.1, General Manager's report.
can I ask if we go to put this mayoral minute? When did it
I'll put the
happen that we
mayoral
don't have to
minute.
vote
Thank you.
on
All
mayoral
those in
minutes?
favour say aye. The mayoral minute, thank you. Against? Councillor Leslie, thank you. 9.1, page 7, thank you. The GM.
happy to move.
Happy to second.
I've got a question, if I can, please.
So Councillor Goodsell and Councillor Collins. Yeah. Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that?
I certainly would. Thank you, Mayor Statham. Just a brief thank you. Well done to our General Manager, Mr. Craig Butler, and Mayor Statham for their actions. And they weren't the only actions taken, but well done to them for acting on behalf of Lithgow to advocate and prevent the loss of critical services at Lithgow Community Private Hospital. And we can hope in time that Nepean Blue Mountains Local Health District will come back with a workable model again to support our vulnerable and elevated community with critical local medical services at our hospital.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, the Lithgow Community Private was opened in 1999, so it's got a long history here in Lithgow. I personally utilised the service. I gave birth to my youngest daughter, Rose, there, and that was a good 19 years ago. The most important line mentioned in this report, and I quote, "It is recommended that Council continue with its advocacy." This service is absolutely imperative. We can't afford to lose any health services in Lithgow. It is a valued service, and as Council, we need to stand by the Lithgow community and support a long-term solution. So this is why I support the further recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any other people wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Marnie?
Just to support the comments made by both the councillors, but just a question through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. Is there an identified time frame that you expect this agreement to be completed within, given the significance of it?
Mr General Manager?
Thank you, Councillor Marnie, and through you, Mayor. No, I'm not. We're not privy to the negotiations. We're sitting on the sideline and moving between the government and Lithgow Community Private. But we are advised that the discussions are fruitful, they're productive, and as the report recommends, we'll provide an update to the January meeting of Council, and we'll take stock at where they're at that point in time, and whether it continues, whether the matter has been concluded satisfactorily, or whether we need to play an additional role to achieve that outcome.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell.
No, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried, yes. 9.1.2, Organisation Structure Review.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Who seconded that? Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that?
I would. Not very much to say. Very happy with the report. It's just another example of Council acknowledging the need to contain the cost of senior management. And the General Manager has noted there that each of them are carrying more workload and are still performing admirably.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Marnie. Again, thank you for the report. Looking at the structure, it's quite, setting aside that as a rural council we supply water and sewer, and I accept that, and that sits there as a separate directorate, it's quite a considerable body of work to be undertaken by two directors. to cover all of this area. My concerns are, and look, there might be some high performance and sustaining that over time. I want to be sure that we've got a sustainable structure, particularly given the economic development profile coming forward. We also have significant amounts of developments and significant developments going on in the area. We are imagining significant increases in that. I'm just not sure if the structure is matching the emerging workload. And particularly, I'd personally like to see a directorate which had a strong focus on economic development and appropriate officers in that for that economic development process. And this is no commentary on any way staff are operating. I just, if two directors manage to deliver nearly an entire local government program, I take my hat off to them. It's quite a significant achievement. So I'd just like to think that we're considering the sustainability of the shape of this work structure at the moment. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else? Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, I also have the same concerns as Councillor Marnie. I've always advocated in council information sessions and stuff that I think having the workload moved over to directors could possibly lead to burnout and maybe some issues like down the track in relation to mental health stuff. It is a high amount of work that these guys are doing, and they're doing a marvellous job at the moment, but sustainability in relation to that is, I think maybe down the track could be compromised. I don't want to see the standard of work drop over that time. Director Edgecombe, he's looking at, he's got a lot of stuff on his plate at the moment, including the Walgan Gap, Pierce's Lookout, Gap Road, Glen Davis, potholes, McCain's Falls Road, and then he's also got to look at the economic development side of things as well. And I look at the structure as well, and I see that the economic development side of things falls under the Director Edgecombe, but I think it should, you look at, you go over to People and Place, the Director for People and Place, and they've got community culture, tourism and events, development and environment, which all should be under economic development, in my opinion anyway. So I think, you know, we are moving on. I think it's going to be a really tough time for two directors to run all of these programs for Lithgow as we emerge into transition.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. The General Manager would like to speak to that. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge the astuteness of those observations because I think you've really observed what is the situation. There is a little footnote in a few paragraphs towards the end of this report that acknowledge that, and there's other reports elsewhere that speak about our capacity, or in fact our limited capacity. So this is a structure that I needed to report because of this section of the Act 332 requiring this council to take a decision or affirm an organisational structure within 12 months of an election. But I don't see this as the final structure. Let's see where we get to with the SRV, and let's see where we get to with LEAP. I need to make a point that there are 5 executives in the organisation at director or director equivalent, including myself and the executive manager of water and wastewater. So there's actually 5. But yes, we have divided some of the work across those portfolios, and everybody's busy. So I look forward actually in the new year to probably late in the new year, seeing where we get to with the SRV and LEAP, to engage with the council again about an enduring structure. But in the meanwhile, I take the opportunity to thank those directors, all of them, that are carrying significant workloads. but we don't have the capacity, the financial capacity. And I also want to acknowledge other levels of managers. This interim restructure has allowed others to step up and rise, and we found talent in the organisation. That's been a wondrous thing also, to give those people opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin and the General Manager. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this? Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell.
I would just like to acknowledge that particularly wouldn't have been a good place for the General Manager to have to be in, to divvy up economic development across the rest of the executive leadership team, but limited capacity and finance, and again the organisation is demonstrating containing cost.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Right, 9.1.3, GM, advocacy priorities for the New South Wales state election. Can I have somebody move this, thank you?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to that?
I'm fairly happy with the advocacy items, the sustainable local government, which is really important, diverse, strong and resilient local economy. This talks about transition and stuff out of the power industry in the future, and water security, sustainable transport options. These are all very good points to make and advocate for.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Stateman. The New South Wales state election is fast approaching, and I absolutely agree that we need to be on the front foot, bringing our priorities for our community to the attention of all political parties. Anything can happen next March. Victoria is an example of that. As stated in the report, I agree with the fact that climate change will continue to assert itself. Regional councils need to be supported in being financially sustainable. Let's not forget that local government is an arm of the state government. Local economy needs to be diversified. Lithgow is a city which sits between the central west and western Sydney. We need to be seen as a hub, not a gateway. We want them here to stay. We don't want them to pass through. Which fast and more frequent rail service is absolutely a must. We need to lobby for this. This is an opportunity for us. We need to put Lithgow on the map. We need to make sure that both political parties see us.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this? Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. I have some questions, but actually I don't expect them to be answered. They're more rhetorical questions. If we pass this list, what happens then? Do we send it to candidates, to political parties, campaign on issues via press releases or on the council website or council Facebook page? Will it be assumed, because I'm a councillor, that I support these issues? I don't. I agree with some of these sweeping statements, but not all. I'll just wait till my councillor McGee stops sighing. I think a major issue not mentioned here, and should have been, is the cost shifting of programs of the state government. Why was that not included? Is that not important? Are we pretending to speak on behalf of our citizens? Or are we just speaking for the majority of our citizens? Because clearly not all of our citizens will agree with everything. If we are speaking on behalf of the majority of our citizens, why aren't we advocating for the removal of the West Lithgow precinct, which clearly has the majority support of our citizens and which enables the burning of Sydney's waste?
Could you please keep on topic? Thank you, Councillor
Yes,
Leslie. We're discussing
I am exactly on topic.
Okay, keep going.
We're talking about matters that could be raised in advocacy for the coming state election. And clearly that is going to be one that will be raised. For me not to be able to speak on it here is part of the process that this seems to happen at this council. So are we going to say we, the council, supports the burning of waste in Lithgow, and if you disagree with that, well, tough cheese. Are we going to spend money on this matter? We already have had expenses. This report, for example, reports to council briefing sessions. Will there be more expense? Is it our right to use council's money on campaign issues that may or may not be supported by our community? Personally, and I'll be voting against anything here, personally I think we should just respect the intelligence of the voters and butt out of this pretentious exercise.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this? Councillor Goodsell?
Go on. No, go on.
Oh, Councillor Marnie, you were next, sorry, I beg your pardon.
I do agree with a number of these points for advocacy, and I thank the General Manager for bringing them together. I do want to see more visibility around the local emerging economy plan, given I'm understanding it's coming to conclusion fairly soon. I'd like to have a clearer understanding of where we're going as far as the seamless implementation that we'll be moving to, as stated in the report. I'm very interested in issues around housing, and I might sound like a broken record on this, but it's on the turntable. It's going to stay on the turntable, and I want to look at opportunities for state partnerships in that, and how that interplays with the emerging economy project. Also interested in tourism and culture. May not have got a mention here, and I think that would be useful, and that may in fact be embedded in that local emerging economy plan. So they're the only comments. I do concur with Councillor Leslie in regard to the waste to energy proposal. That is something that I don't believe our community supports. However, I endorse the other points that are going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Just a quick question before I do speak to this. Are people allowed to amend this report if they wish to? Like, could amendments have been put forward?
Mr General Manager.
Yes, certainly, Mayor. Councillors are well aware that if they're not accepting of this recommendation, there are options to advance amendments.
Thank you. So just briefly, I don't have any amendments. I support all three items to be advocated, and noteworthy is the single largest challenge for regional council, again, is financial sustainability. And I've got another quick question. Councils are incapable of being as effective as the system for funding for local government is fundamentally broken. If I could have an answer to that at the end of when I finish speaking, please. 40% of the value created in our city is derived from coal mining and power generation, so we do need significant assistance for transition after being a provider of significant part of coal industry and power generation for decades. Also mentioned is the finalisation of our LEAP program, the ignition of our shovel-ready identified industrial sites with government support, and all the items listed. There's many there, and as well as I do agree with something Councillor Leslie said, it's all well and good to advocate. When will we have a response directly addressing each of these items? Who does it go to? When do they get back to us? It's good to make representations, but much more difficult to get a response.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Mr General Manager is going to speak to that. Thank you.
Just dealing with the first one last. Yes, well, advocacy is complicated, and you're looking to raise a profile of your city or your region or your sector when perhaps it doesn't have the highest profile with political parties and candidates. So none of this is easy, but the election is a process which I firmly believe, and I'm recommending that the council participate in on behalf of the community, and these advocacy items have their genesis in the community engagement and the integrated planning framework and the discussions and many meetings that we've had with the community. So we'll be advocating in many different ways, probably all of the ways we'd like to think that Councillor Leslie referred to. Direct representations by letter, meetings will be requested, media, collateral material on Council's website, but not just doing it once, but doing it as many times as we can and trying to cut through. We'll also be collaborating with others. So you also spoke about the comment which in a blunt sense says that the system of funding for local government is fundamentally broken, and that is my firm belief. And in the many briefings that we've provided to the council, we've spoken of this, and that's the reason that we're collaborating with the likes of Australian Local Government Association to advocate for a fairer share of national taxation revenues coming to local government. I read the local government professionals group submission to the rate pegging, and they spoke about the need to come up with a better practice to set the rate peg. The rate peg system has not allowed our revenues to keep track of inflation. So national revenues back to communities need to be improved, and so does the state system of setting rates. We'd also favour less tied grants, and for the council to be able to determine the most appropriate projects and purposes to put grants to within the local community.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell and the General Manager. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'd just like to speak to the validity of the whole thing. I think it's a fantastic report, and also just to address, the energy from waste situation. I do believe there's a lot of support in the community, especially around Greenspot and Wallerawang. Greenspot wish to remain in the running for any kind of incinerator like that. Also, I think it's very important to listen to the local community. A couple of hundred people do not speak for everyone.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce?
No, I've got nothing. The report's all written, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you.
No, we need to go against.
Pardon?
Councillor Leslie voted.
Against? Councillor Leslie, thank you. Item 9.2, People and Services Report. 9.2.1, Building and Development.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor
Happy to second.
Goodsell. Thank you.
Oh. Is this 3-3?
Yes.
I'd like to move an amendment.
Just one moment, please. Councillor Goodsell and Councillor Goodwin. Are you seconding this, Councillor Goodwin?
No, not this recommendation.
Oh, sorry. You'd like to second it, would you, Councillor Marnie? Thank you, Councillor McGee.
I would, however, like to move an amendment. Because sorry? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Statham. I understand this may be a difficult decision for all councillors. I'd like to thank Mr Gary Brown, the Chair of Three Tree Lodge. He's reached out to me over the last couple of days to ask for consideration in this request, and also for Kate coming to speak tonight. I'd like to thank them for their innovation to increasing the availability of beds, in particular to our local community and our elderly at their most vulnerable time of their life. With a great deal of thought and consideration, my role as a councillor is to be fiscally responsible on behalf of all ratepayers. I understand it is a not-for-profit organisation, and the waiving of $85,000 will help them significantly, and it would get this project over the line, I've got no doubt. I wish this were possible with no adverse effect on council, but consequently there is. I can't support a waiver for the following reasons. The $20,000 odd does not sit within those developments that are exempt under Section 94A. 2 meetings ago, we actually endorsed and moved that the Association of Bell, Clarence and Dargan were charged their 1% of Section 94A charges. To waive would set a precedent for other organisations and developers to be entitled to fee waivers. Our long-term financial plan is inclusive of recovering these costs based on projected growth. Unlike voluntary planning agreement, Section 94A, all developments over $200,000 are charged 1% unless they fall into the exempt category. If waived, the cost will fall back onto the community ratepayers to recover. The only way developers can contribute to the current ongoing infrastructure is through Section 94A contributions. The water and wastewater charges are justified in the report, and to not charge for this development will mean costs will be recovered again by the ratepayers. I understand the significance, as the federal government have funded $1.8 million to create essential extra beds for our community. I also understand the significance in the growth of 70% rise in cost for the developer that they've stated tonight, but consideration must also be given to that council is in the same boat with increase in all costs. I have once gone against this act, but council's decision-making planning processes are prescribed in a legal framework which is called the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, and our planning decisions must be based on those laws which ensure that all parties proposing development in the city are treated the same. I do hope this significant development goes over the line, but I can't support the $85,000 in fees waived for the reasons above.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor McGee.
I'll just reserve my right to talk.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this?
There's an amendment.
Yes, your amendment. Councillor Marnie.
I'd like to amend the recommendations that the council approve the request by Free Tree Lodge limited to waiver the contributions and fees applicable under DA 256/22 as outlined in this report for Free Tree Lodge alterations and additions.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Coleman. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Coleman? Councillor Marnie.
I thank Councillor Goodsell for her explanation for her reason for why she can't support it. I'll provide my views on it and why I believe we should be supporting it. We talked about the legal framework, but within the report it states that under a former policy or through a decision of the elected council at the time, I was talking to a council that previously wavering it, it is not a consideration for development assessment in relation to the processing and application and its contributions. However, it then says this is a consideration that only the elected council can apply. And we have chosen to waiver DA fees for the 2019-25 bushfire affected properties, and rightly so. So I'd like to ask a question before we go on to speak further. Is there a legal framework that restricts us from waivering these fees? Through the Mayor, please.
Yes. Mr. McGrath, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Well, the legal framework is the fact that we have to have a contributions plan, and that's the 2015 contributions plan that Council adopted. So that's the policy document that we, or at least the officers and the developers and the planners use to recommend approval or not approval of DAs together with the appropriate charges.
Okay, thank you for your answer, but I'm not sure it actually clarifies the question I'm asking. We have waived the fees.
Mr. McGrath.
I can't give a definitive answer on that without notice, councillor, but it's possible, without going back, I'd have to have a look at the reasons why the council did waive those fees, but they may have been eligible to be waived under the terms of the plan itself. In other words, they fell into one of those categories. So the categories that are mentioned in this report clearly indicate that the three tree development application doesn't fall into one of those categories, exemption categories.
The General Manager would like to add some information to that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr McGrath.
So just to add to, and thanks, Mr McGrath, just to add to what Mr McGrath said there, in the case of the development application fees, well, they're a maximum fee. So the council, the council sets its schedule of fees, they're adopted, and the organisation, the administration applies those consistently. But the council does have the discretion to charge a lower fee. The point in the report is, and what the report speaks to, is the concept of equity and consistency and fairness. And so the council can adopt a policy position, and then that policy position can be applied to all categories of development that come forward. So by way of example, previously the council, from the report, had a policy position of not charging Section 94 back in 2015, I think it was. But this council's current policy, as adopted by the council in its 94A, is to charge the contributions. And so the point here is we operate in a legal framework. We deal with applicants every day, and if the council is of a mind to reduce its fees, the administration recommends that they should do that by way of adopting a policy which is applied consistently to all applicants in those categories, rather than doing that on an individual circumstance.
Okay, I thank you for your answer. However, I still remain unclear. I'm going to go on the information I have in the report, which has an example of us waiving a fee, and also the statement that this is a consideration that only the elected council can apply. So I'm going to take that advice in lieu of a policy being in place.
Councillor Marnie, the
that's
General
not an
Manager.
accurate interpretation, with due respect, Councillor Marnie. What the report is saying, the council previously had a policy of waiving the fees, and that policy was applied by the administration. The current plan as adopted by the council in relation to Section 94A does not include this type of development as an exempt development. So the council's policy is to impose the contribution.
Okay, I don't want to end up in a debate with the General Manager, but I'm going to take the advice that's provided to me in the report, that there is no current adopted council policy basis for a waiver, and nor has a legal or merit-based case been made by the applicant. So there is no policy in place. That's what the report's telling me. I'm also reading that this consideration can only be the elected council can apply, and I'm noting an example of how it's occurred. So I can only work with what I'm provided in the report. So I'll proceed to put the case for why I believe the fee should be waived. In my mind, two services are critical at the beginning of life and end of life, and one of them is our schooling, which we as a community invest in a public sense. Our end-of-life services through aged care are critical to how we look after the elders of our community. We haven't yet got the public mix of funding right. The fact that some fairly, I wouldn't call them radical, groups campaigned in the last federal election, such as people like Uniting Care and Baptist Care. They're not people that I would see as being that style of person, because they see that there is an issue with the way we fund aged care. For us, in a small community, and previous councils, and I do support the previous council's decision to waiver fees for Lithgow Aged Care and Free Tree Lodge Limited in the past. I see this as a vital service in our community. There's significant financial challenges to maintain these, and the extra beds, given that we've got 32% of our population over 60, our need to have well-developed and delivered services for our aged population is critical. I think one of the biggest and most disconcerting things for families is when families become disconnected during these stages, and particularly their circles of friends. For us in a regional area, it may mean people being housed in Mudgee or Bathurst or beyond. So I'm happy, and I appreciate the points that Councillor Goodsell made as far as fiscal discipline and financial discipline. However, I see this as an essential service that provides significant community and ongoing community benefit to our population. And on this occasion, I'm suggesting that we do, in fact, support the request for the waiver.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. 1 in 4 within the Lithgow region are over the age of 65. That's 32%, as Councillor Marnie mentioned, and this development meets the growing demand of the aged care services within Lithgow. It creates new employment positions which are needed in the sector and employment across the Lithgow local government area. This organisation is a government by voluntary community-based board, which means that they have a board, they're voluntary, and they've put a lot of work into it. We have waived fees in the past. Yes, I understand there's current policy in place which the staff work towards. However, as councillors, we have discretionary, and council is fluid. We can have a look at the recommendation, we can change it, we can amend it, we can vote against it. That's the advantage of being a councillor. Three Tree Lodge has approved funding from the Australian government, and this gives council the opportunity to work alongside them by waiving the fees. And this also supports the community in a wider sense. And as Councillor Marnie said, there's schooling and aged care absolutely imperative in one's life.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Goodsell? Councillor Leslie first.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. I understand that it's councillors who make policy and the administration who administers it. And we've had policies in the past, and I know you won't like it, but I'll give you an example. We had a policy that Lithgow Council opposed the New South Wales Government's Energy from Waste Infrastructure Plan. And yet, we had a report from the General Manager that overturned that policy. That didn't come from a notice of motion, and it didn't come from a question on notice. It came from a report by the General Manager. So that policy position that only councillors can make policy seems to be very arbitrary. Now, in this particular instance, it seems clear to me that should this council meet here tonight decide that that there should be a policy to support the aged care here in waiving this these fees, then that should stand. It's a policy of the made by the councillors in council, having considered a report, and I agree with Councillor Marnie. It seems a very sensible thing to do. Now, we then have to decide whether it's good for the community or not. I think the policy can be made by the council. Now we have to decide whether it's good for the community. Well, I believe in this instance it is. Community health care is an essential element for our community, in particularly Lithgow with its ageing community. Someone my age might be interested, but I'm not speaking for myself here. And we lost recently a community-based aged care facility, Lithgow Aged Care. It went to a private company, for a for-profit company. Now, I think they're probably a good company, but it's no longer a community-based organisation, and the decisions made by that company will do so, for their own interests, not for the interests of the community. Here we have a community-based organisation that takes into account the needs of our local community, the needs of the Lithgow community, and we must foster that. We must support that, and I think that's an essential element of our role as councillors. I think it's an essential element to be aware of the needs of our council and to encourage these things, because once lost, you don't get them back. Once lost, they're gone. And then, of course, what happens? Well, who comes in, who's able to use these things is determined on financial matters or on other issues. They're not determined on the needs of our community. So I think we just have to. I think it's essential that we show support for the board of the Three Tree Lodge, and I congratulate Councillor Marnie and I congratulate Kate Hurrell for her report, and as a former chairman of the Lithgow Aged Care, I still have nightmares over that. As a former chairman of that, I just know how hard she worked, and I know how hard this board of the Three Tree Lodge is working, and they're working for the people of Lithgow.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, sorry, I'm also speaking for the amendment.
All right, thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
Sorry. Life or people who need assisted living. I support the waiving of the fees for a development like this. Lithgow is an ageing population. We need to assist where we can, and it's very important for the elderly in our area. Now, I've a personal account in the last few weeks with my mum. We've just put her in aged care. It's been a long process. We've had, it's taken us over 12 months to get her a spot. She hasn't been able to get any spots in Lithgow at all until 4 weeks ago when we had to take her out of her home. Lithgow need more beds. I talked to ambulance officers. They're saying that the hospital's backed up with people in aged care waiting for spots to go into aged care. Anything we can do to assist more beds for aged care people, I'm going to vote for. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you. Sorry, Mayor Statham. It's really good debate and it's really, really interesting. We're considering tonight asking every single ratepayer for a possible increase in paying their rates. I've got a couple of questions at the end, but considering this, do we go back and ask the Association of Bell, Clarence and Dargan to refund their 1%? Because it's not just health and education. Their community was destroyed by bushfires and they're requesting a community hall, and they weren't exempt from paying their 94A charges in a similar position. What if Lithgow Information Neighbourhood Centre, they've had multiple DAs come before us. What if they came to us? They're a non-for-profit organisation. What are we going to waive their fees to? I just think, and I'd like some explanation from someone about where does this money get recovered from? Where does this $85,000, the long-term financial plan, is projected into the future regarding development and the money that we collect? What impact will that have on our bottom line? How does it set a precedent? How are we going to differentiate between a developer who's got special circumstances and they need a 94A waiver? How do we differentiate? How do we draw a line? I understand the significance of these beds. I understand the need for them. Health is important. Clarence Dargan bushfires are important as well. So it's a really good debate, but I can't support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else speaking for the amendment? Okay, anybody else speaking against the amendment? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'd just like to say that, yeah, absolutely, aged care is extremely important and there's no two ways about that. But it is not going, you know, Councillor Coleman alludes to it solving our aged care problems. It's 7 new beds, you know, 700 beds may well cure our aged care problem. But 700 beds would be 100 times $85,000, which is $8.5 million. So where do we stop? That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak before I put the amendment? Right of reply to Councillor Marnie. Thank you.
Stop talking now. Okay. I thank Councillor McGee for his identification of, yes, it is a broken system. The funding system is problematic for aged care in this country. And we do have community members that step up and step onto boards to not bring costs to the running of those organisations. We have a not-for-profit organisation, and I take the point that Councillor Goodsell makes that there are other organisations that are providing significant community benefit as well. They differ quite differently from a developer, where we are here, we're talking about a lasting community benefit that people will receive from this organisation. Whilst the system is broken, we need to do everything we can to maximise the amount of beds we can get in our regional area. I still reiterate the point of family dislocation is a significant issue for people in small communities, and trying to find the 2.5 hour round trip to go and visit relatives starts to distance that. So I'll support any initiative, and if we can as a council, and make these determinations to waiver fees to support the extension of the services. Yes, I agree 7 beds will go some way to helping with the 50 waiting list, but the problem is significant, and I don't deny that. But we have our moment to make a choice, albeit in a relatively small way, and I still am very happy to support this on this occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the
Point
amendment.
of order, Mayor Statham. Sorry, I didn't get my questions answered. So the $85,000, where will that come from, and what impact will it have on our budget long term?
Mr McGrath will explain that to you, Councillor Goodwell.
Thanks, Mayor Statham, and Mr Gurney might have some extra information too, but I just thought it might be useful if I read out a small section of the actual contributions plan, the 2015 contributions plan, that addresses that issue that Councillor Goodsell's raised. So it says that it's considered reasonable that new development contribute to the sustained and ongoing investment in the provision, extension and augmentation of infrastructure and services identified by the community through the Lithgow Community Strategic Plan. Funds collected under this plan will contribute to a proportion of the costs of some of these facilities and services as detailed in the work schedule, the remainder of which will be funded by Council's operation and delivery and long-term financial plan process or other funding opportunities such as grant funding in order to achieve the priorities identified in the Lithgow Community Strategic Plan. So I guess the point of that is the money will have to come from somewhere to be able to maintain our infrastructure into the future.
And the water and wastewater?
That's probably a question I should flick to perhaps Mr Edgecombe. No. Okay.
Through you, Mayor Statham. The long-term financial plan is based on assumptions of growth and the value of contributions in future years. So, in other words, it's a general assumption of the amounts that would be received each year. It's not based on any individual DAs. Obviously, any waiver does impact the projections and council's ability to deliver infrastructure, community infrastructure.
Sorry, that's not my question. So the water wastewater charges that we're looking to waive in this amendment are $65,000. So council has to provide those services for that amount of money. Where does that money then come from?
For the water and wastewater contributions, so that is for water and sewer infrastructure in that area. So that would otherwise need to be funded by council if these contributions weren't available.
So the situation, if I can just summarise, the situation will be that council, we won't recoup $4,000, I think it is, for the development application. So that'll be funded by the general community and not the applicant. In the case of the Section 94A, my advice would be to reduce the infrastructure provided by that amount. I think it's around $20,000. And in the case of the water and wastewater, that's a contribution towards providing sewer mains and water mains into this development and would be required. So that is a charge that will need to be met, will be required to be charged. So we'll need to fund that from the general fund back into the water and wastewater.
Can I ask a question? I have a question. So the infrastructure that would need to be developed, that won't be actually developed within the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months. It'll take a while for that. So it's not as though where the question that Councillor Goodsell asked was, where does the money come from? It doesn't come from anywhere, because what it is money that's not received. But it's not coming from anywhere. So and then all these other costs are not paid for immediately, but they're paid for when the need is when the need for the development is when the development is actually
Councillor
being built.
Leslie, this has been debated, a fair debate, a good debate. You don't ask a question when you know the answer. So moving on, I'm going to put the amendment, please. All those in favour of the amendment, Councillor Marnie's amendment. So there's Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Goodwin. All those against, thank you. Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Marnie, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee.
So just to make it formal, could we have a division on that?
Yeah, and myself, yes.
I'd like a division on that. I know that you've called the names, but I'd like a division so that they're recorded.
Yes, absolutely, so would I. So against the amendment, all those against for the amendment to start off with. So there's Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Goodwin. Against the amendment is Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham. We'll now go back to Councillor Goodsell and the original motion. Thank you. The amendment was lost. Is there any more debate on this, Councillor Goodwin? Councillor Goodsell? If there's not, I'll put the motion.
No, I don't believe so. I think it's unfortunate, and it makes me sad but I'm not convinced that. It was a really good debate, and I think that we've possibly come to the best conclusion.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Coleman. Thank you. (9.2.1.2) 3 Tree Lodge alterations and additions, 2A Coldrew Drive, Southbound Fells.
Happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Marnie, would you like to speak to that?
Firstly, I'll just thank the staff for dividing the two issues up into 2 separate reports. Microphone, please. Apologies. I just thank the staff for separating the 2 reports, 2 sections of this issue into 2 reports. I'll I've talked to the value of why a DA like this should be approved in the discussion around the waiving of the fees. I do want to acknowledge the staff who have worked with the management of Free Tree Lodge, particularly around the design of the APZ. I thought that was a really quite good resolution to a short-term fire risk, and to place it in our land rather than constrain the development shape of the of what's proposed in the application was, I think, a really well thought out. So I appreciate those staff that have worked on that with Free Tree Lodge. Again, I see this as a really great step forward. I hope that the financial challenges that face Free Tree Lodge can be overcome in developing this, what is an essential and vital service, and a service that we desperately need to keep augmenting as we go along. So I recommend that we support the recommendations of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing that they're going to proceed with this. 7 families will obviously benefit. Numerous people will be employed, so I will also support this.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie.
The only comment, and look, I sort of contributed this at the last meeting. I probably should have thought to separate these matters up perhaps at the last meeting, and I know that certainly hasn't helped Free Tree Lodge in progressing what is a complex project, and particularly this time of year with start times. So I wish them all the best with this project, and I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 9.2.1.3 Lithgow siding coal loader modification for and Clarence Colliery. Thank you.
I'll move that.
Councillor Bryce.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Seconding. Thank you. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to that?
This is just a modification to a DA to allow temporary truck transport coal from Clarence to to Lithgow siding to be taken into Mount Piper to make up for the shortfall of coal going into Mount Piper to keep Mount Piper going. It is only temporary, and it does state here that it won't have any impact to the surroundings and to the surrounding environment. So I don't see an issue with this update.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell. No? Any debate on this? I'll put Councillor Bryce right of reply. No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Thank you. Uh, 9.2.2.1 Annual Report and Disability Inclusion Action Plan.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that?
I would, thank you, Ms Statham. I've been waiting for this plan to come to council. There is not one particular highlight in this report, but a multitude of great accessibility outcomes right across the local government area. Restrictions, we all know, are placed on those with difficulties and disabilities, restricts their choices socially, physically and environmentally, reducing their full participation in our community. Congratulations to Mr McGrath and all those involved in contributing to these great outcomes for our local government area.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. 4.5 million Australians are living with a disability. The case for an inclusive community is strong. In the Lithgow Disability Inclusion Action Plan, it mentions and ensures that there are sufficiently well-located disability parking spaces in the local government area. I would like to know if there's one out the front. to access both council and Centrelink. Come back to me on that. Recruitment procedures are so very important. Being an equal opportunity employer is imperative to attract potential employment market, considering the labour shortage access across New South Wales. That's in the plan. I would also like to acknowledge those who work within the disability sector. Members of our community every day provide services to those who need it the most. NDIS support coordinators, support workers, carers, therapists. But I would like to make a special mention of the Amaroo Equine in the Megalong Valley. Through equine assisted learning, they provide programs to support those with a disability, which is NDIS welcomed. This is a great report. I support it, and we need to ensure that we're doing everything we possibly can to ensure that we are inclusive for those with a disability.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell? Councillor Rice?
The report is great. It's some really good outcomes for the community. Our biggest employer for disability service is Link, and they're a great service, so we need to acknowledge them as well in this if we're going to acknowledge other people. Link is our biggest employer. They employ 88 people and across a lot of disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell. Thank you.
Nothing much really, just the fact that the council initiatives, the council plan, the council works of inclusion of disability support in our community, it's about council. There's a multitude of organisations across our community that supply disability support. This specifically relates to council.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Thank you. I have a memorandum here to all councillors, so I'll read this out. During the exhibition period, Council received 4 submissions to the Lithgow Community Cultural Protocol, as summarised in the Council report. It was requested that the Gunagara and the Darug Nations be acknowledged in the document. We have since been alerted by some local groups that the acknowledgement wording above requires further amendment. This is now being worked on in consultation with the Bathurst Local Land Council. As such, this report we will withdraw from tonight's council meeting and will be placed on the agenda for January council meeting. I apologise for this inconvenience. Director Michael McGrath and People and Services. Thank you. Thank you, Mr McGrath. 9.2.2.3 Ironfest request for financial support. Thank you.
Happy to move with a very small amendment.
I think Councillor McGee had his hand up. Councillor McGee, seconded Councillor Goodsell. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move that with the 2 points of the recommendation that that we note the information provided on a request for financial support from Ironfest Inc. and determine an option in response to Ironfest's request for financial support, with the Council's administration's recommended option being that the organisers be encouraged to collaborate with Council and other potential funding bodies, both public and private, for a return of the event in the 23-24 year.
So your recommendation, Councillor McGee?
Is as it stands.
Right, thank you.
Basically, we love Ironfest. I can't see it getting up and off the ground with the information that we have here for April of the coming year. It just, and our budget is spent. We're putting in for a rate rise, for that very reason. I think that if we can bring this back to the table next year when we have a new budget and we know what's happening with our income, we'll be a lot more, lot clearer.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you. Ironfest is a highly regarded, significant event which brings many visitors and an injection of cash into our area, and I'd love to see it proceed. Unfortunately, COVID has had a significant impact on their financial capacity to operate, and I'd love to see it go ahead, but I'm going to take all the emotion out of this completely and act in the best interest of the 11,000 ratepayers. In recent years, and over many years, council has provided corporate sponsorship to Ironfest, and I believe this year's budget would have been set at the $18,000 for venue hire, inspection of food stalls, food lighting and waste management. I don't have a problem with that amount of money, with the $18,000. This organisation has requested in this business paper $92,000. And as councillors, we're responsible for every single cent of the ratepayers' money. Unfortunately, this report comes with little information for guidance where I could possibly justify a decision to the community. All councillors are able to see the 2 attachments with financial details and a letter of request from Ironfest requesting support. And incidentally, that report has a different amount listed. However, the community and anyone wanting to look at that information cannot see it, as it is confidential. So I'm unable to support reallocation of $92,000 from an already committed budget. This would mean, again, money would need to be taken from operational projects which would need to have their funding reconsidered to enable the funds to go back to Ironfest.
Thank you, Councillor Goodson.
So that is all I've got to say.
Thank you.
I have an amendment.
Yes, Councillor Coleman, your amendment.
Thank you. My amendment is that I would like to move that Lithgow City Council provide sponsorship to the amount of $36,000. 1. 2. A formal agreement is entered into between parties as per option 2.
Could I have a second to thank you?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I take on board what Councillor Goodsell is saying, and I thank her for her comments. I'm starting to sound like Councillor Marnie. It is the biggest annual arts festival to take place here within the Central West. Ironfest attracts visitors across the country. I know of visitors that come from both Canberra and Queensland, especially to attend Lithgow for Ironfest. They stay in the local hotels, they eat out, and they inject, as per the report states, $5 million into the local economy. To lose Ironfest would to lose a part of Lithgow's history, which is celebrating the birth of steel in Australia, in Lithgow. In 2019, over 20,000 people attended. I fully support this event. It needs support. I would hate to see it lost.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Marnie, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The first point I'd like to go to is, obviously, this is a significant event in our calendar. I, like many of the councillors, envisage a very full calendar of events through the year, whether it's Ironfest, whether it's Halloween, Lithgow, food festivals, daffodils, or Rydal. We need to have a vibrant tourism and event-based and an arts and culture part of our economy. So obviously Ironfest plays a big role in that and has over time. Touching on my understanding, as a council we were approached in April about this issue. We were briefed on what the organisation was seeking, and we've had a subsequent number of interactions with the president of the Ironfest Inc. Again, a not-for-profit looking to run an opportunity to develop economic activity in our town as well as a cultural event. I'd like to come out of this interaction with a clear understanding of how we interact with people coming forward for events. We will have people that will want to have exclusive use of our lands and charge fees. We need to know whether we're setting a flag in the sand that these are 100% cost recovery, or whether we are looking at, again, the benefits to our community and our economy with supporting these. I know people might contest the $5 million figure. If it's 500,000, over a weekend of cash that's transacted in our local community, that's terrific. Every step away from there is even better. The other thing is about the money that we put up. Now, one part of it is a venue hire. If Ironfest doesn't go ahead, we'll be receiving zero venue hire. If we decide to waiver it, we'll receive zero as well. However, we may have an opportunity in year 2 of receiving money for that venue hire. I'm quite supportive of the concept of supporting restart buttons and startups for new events. They need to bring forward a merit-based business case of what they want to do, but I hope also our organisation can assist in that. And I hear when I sit in the community development meeting, there are people that are imagining events that will be highly valuable to that calendar of events. So I'm sort of hoping that it appears the council may not wish to support the sponsorship. I personally, looking at the number of wavering costs in this, I realise there is a cost. We pay our staff and it will have an overtime exposure, but the actual expenditure cost is relatively low. It's the income we're foregoing. And we've got to make a decision of whether we want to kickstart a significant event again. They'll tell us if it's not going ahead. I don't think we should release money if we don't feel like it's going to go ahead. I certainly do support the option 2 for the following financial year, but I still would like to be in the game this financial year, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman?
No,
Anybody else wishing to speak for the amendment? Councillor Bryce?
Okay, I'd like to see Ironfest run. The only thing is I don't want to see it run at a cost of other events in Lithgow, like Halloween and the likes, which are free for everyone in our community. It is affordable. When they're free, all our families can afford those. Ironfest is not affordable for a lot of the families, so I don't want to see us risking free events for an event that's not affordable for our whole community. The other thing is too, Councillor Coleman suggested 20,000 people came to the last event. I looked at the pricing of the tickets in that 2019 event, and the financials, which we can't discuss in full, doesn't suggest 20,000 people based on that ticket price. So, you know, I don't understand where the numbers come from. So it would have been better if we were able to disclose some of these numbers and had a better way of dissecting them, so that we are fully understanding where all these figures are coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone speaking against this? Councillor Leslie?
I was wanting to support Councillor Coleman's amendment.
Yes, you can speak, certainly.
Right. I think this is an investment in the future. $5 million boost to our economy. You may or may not believe that, but even $1 million boost to our economy is valuable. And it's something that the shops, I heard the other day Councillor Marnie saying that his wife's shop has their best day, best week during Ironfest. Well, that has to apply to other shops. It has to be something. Now, the reason they need this money is that for 2 years they've had costs going out but no income coming in. They're fixed costs. They have to do a whole series of events and they've lost their seed funding. Now, run it for 1 year, they'll get their seed funding back, and future events will be able to be run by them on a similar basis to the 2017, 2018, 2019 years, where seed funding paid for the process to set the whole lot up. And so we're not looking at an ongoing cost here. We're looking at a one-off cost to give a big boost to our economy, and then to enable Ironfest to be run and operate, hopefully, well into the future. And a bit about just a thing about the 20,000 people. 20,000 people, not 20,000 people who have paid to go through the gate. Many of those people are entertainers, people who are actually on the stalls, who are running the processes inside the event, and of course, as they pay other costs, but it's false economy to just take the basic number of 20,000 people coming to Lithgow, and therefore you multiply that by the cost of entry, and you get a figure. That's false numbering.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
Yes.
Councillor Goodsell.
Again, another good debate. Bluntly, visitors to our community don't contribute to our operational funds. Ironfest are asking for $92,000, and in the confidential letter of support, they're asking for even more than that. To give them $36,000, I don't have a problem if I can be assured that that is going to go ahead in 5 months' time. But what it seems, the maths to me, is they're asking for 92, we give them 36, which is just a random figure of double council's contribution to the in-kind works. They still need $56,000. So I don't understand why $36,000 will make a difference when they've requested 92 and more in the other report. And how do I know it's going to kickstart it? How do I know $36,000 is going to cut it for kickstart Ironfest? I'd be happy to give it to them if I had a guarantee, but is there any way they can guarantee, can it come back to council and they can guarantee that it's going to go ahead if we give them $36,000? What if Ironfest runs at a deficit? Who's liable for that if we contribute funds?
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor McGee.
Yes, I also find the figures, as Councillor Marnie and others have pointed out, rather dubious on the $5 million. But and income is good, but there's just too many unanswered questions for this. The $36,000, are you considering giving that on top of the already in-kind money that we give? Like, we give $18,000 in-kind traffic control in the hire of the venue.
As per the option 2,
Mm.
36,000.
So 2 years worth.
Yeah, look, I still can't vote for it because, if it was going to run at a profit, and then I would imagine that they would have taken up the General Manager's offer of a loan of some description. I think that was a very fair offer that was made, and, it was just completely ignored. So, I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Otherwise, I'll ask Councillor Coleman for right of reply. Thank you.
Yep, okay. Look, it is an investment in our future. It does provide an economic boost, which we really do need in this local government area. 20,000 people, it was noted on the Ironfest website. That's where I got the figures. I trust that their figures are correct. I propose 36,000 as per option 2 because I believe in Ironfest and I believe that we should support it. Yes, no, it's not a free event, but then in saying that, Lithgow and Halloween were actually funded by the state government. So that's why it could be a free event. We did provide in-kind donations to both events, but it did actually have state funding. What I'm hoping that this debate will bring, it'll bring notice to both our state member and federal member and show that we actually care about Ironfest. I'm hoping that they will step in. But they have requested $92,000. We can't afford that, that's clear. 36,000 may be a drop in the ocean, but at least it's the start and it's the first drop.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Goodwin? Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman. Against? Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham. Thank you. The amendment is lost.
Just a point of order, was that a division that you just did?
I can make it a division, yes, definitely.
Was a
I'll be
question.
happy to do a division. A division then for the Councillor Coleman's amendment. All those in favour of Councillor Coleman's amendment? Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman. Against? Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham. Thank you. The amendment is lost, so then we go back to the original
Can
motion.
I make another amendment?
You can.
Just for consideration. Sorry. So is it possible to get more information from Ironfest if we are going to put it to them to can we defer it? Can we ask if we're going to contribute $36,000 whether that's going to cut it? Because otherwise it's pointless doing it. I don't. Otherwise, it's going to go until with option two. The organisers be encouraged to collaborate with council.
Yes, that's what it is. That's what it is. Withdraw? All right. I'll put the original motion then, thank you, which was moved by Councillor McGee. All those in favour of Councillor McGee's the motion, please.
Can we have that again? Sorry, can we just...
Unless there's more debate, if you want to debate, I'm happy to do that as well. So debate on the original motion. Thank you. Councillor McGee moved the motion. Councillor Goodsell seconded the motion.
I want to talk on it.
Councillor Bryce.
Whether it's 36,000 or 18,000 we're giving them, that's all in kind. It's still not going to get the festival going. They still need to be getting grants and stuff like that. My biggest concern with the whole thing is, I've had a look at these P&Ls that was given to us confidentially. If Ironfest loses money, which it has in the past, who is liable for that loss if we encourage this to go? Who's it? Is it council? Can I please get an answer for that?
Mr Gurney.
Through you, Mayor Statham, if council would potentially have a sponsorship, any agreement would be a sponsorship agreement with Ironfest, council would not have any liability for losses.
So just another question is, have we spoken to the Ironfest committee about who will carry that liability, how they will cover it if it does loses financially as per previous years?
We haven't had any discussions with Ironfest in regard to losses and liability. The topic hasn't come up at all.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Speak to this matter.
Certainly, Councillor Marnie.
I'll try not to bring any folksy lawyer, because I ain't one, but sponsorships certainly don't create an exposure to a liability. If my football club loses money, us as the committee and the incorporated body are responsible for that, not the workers club for sponsoring us or wherever it may be. So I think Ross has answered that question fairly clearly, that it doesn't create a liability. We're not in a partnership.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak before I put the motion? Right to reply, Councillor McGee.
No, I'm pretty happy with that. Yep.
All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Goodwin, this is a division. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Coleman. Thank you. 9.3 Infrastructure Service Reports. Local gas outage debrief.
I want to move this one.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to that?
This is a great report. The solutions are in there. The permanent solution hopefully will... Is the gas back on yet? Yep, so great. This has already been passed. I have my gas on. One thing I want to add is that I had the pleasure of using the showers down at the showground and sat there with the rest of the community waiting for showers. It was a great initiative by the council. The people really appreciated. The water was hot, there was plenty of pressure, and there was no time limit. And a lot of parents were pretty pleased to be able to take the kids down for a shower. They were clean. They met the community needs at the time. Thanks very much to Jonathan Etchcombe and Dave Anderson for organising that in a timely manner. We lost gas, Wednesday night. We had the showers up on Friday night, and the community really appreciated it. Well, the people I spoke to down at the showers thought it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Look, yeah, as noted in the report, the outrage was a result of a gas leak which occurred on the young Lithgow pipeline. This did create significant angst amongst the community. It was expected that the flooding contribute to the breakage underneath the Macquarie River. However, this area was never declared as an emergency. So our residents are still trying to cope with the out-of-pocket costs associated with the gas outage. I had the opportunity to sit on Amy Frederick's table, the owner and manager of Cafe Bar 128, who won the Outstanding Startup Business of the Year on Saturday night. Her father, Mark, told me that the gas outrage really knocked their business about and has noticed that customers are still slowly coming back. A resident told me that because they had to purchase heating and electric cookware, she's currently out of pocket and can't commit to too much. Another resident was really upset not only about the fact that she's out of pocket, but received a gas bill with a surplus charge, a supply charge, even though they weren't supplied with gas, and was told to contact Gemma after talking to AGL. I note in the report that Lithgow City Council incurred a cost of $60,000 and it states here that Council will continue to work with APA, Gemma and government to ensure all full compensation of costs associated with the event. It says that in the report right here. Council not only needs to work with these companies and the government to ensure full compensation, but we also need to advocate strongly for not only the council but for the community as a whole to provide responsible action for all. I also would like to acknowledge Mr. Etchcombe. You did a great job. You deserve recognition for that. The showers were fantastic. I sent a text to the general manager. He responded, and within 2 days that actually occurred. So full credit to both Mr. Etchcombe and the general manager. The staff did an outstanding job in regards to the response, and communication was really improved, and they deserve that accolade.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Couldn't agree more. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this? Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you. Amazing result from Lithgow City Council, from the showers at Tony Lucchetti to the communication from Council, and also significantly from Paul Toole, our Deputy Premier, and our federal member Andrew G seems to go above and beyond with representation for our community on social media. Well done, Mr. Edgecombe and his team. It's not often that we get to say nice things or people say nice things about Council, but straight from Mr. Edgecombe's report, Council is not simply responsible for roads, rates and rubbish. During floods, fires, pandemics and essential service outages, the service which Council provides are profoundly important to ensure community resilience. Over the past 2 weeks, Council has been adaptive, responsive and acknowledging the needs of the community and acting both strategically and with haste to best serve those who are vulnerable and in need. Lithgow City Council will continue to act in the best interest of this community today and into the future in the face of adversity. I thought they were very, very good words. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I would also like to acknowledge the rapid response team. They put showers out at Kirkley Gardens, amongst other things that a lot of people aren't aware of. But Jonathan Edgecombe has been a credit to himself. General Manager and I are very proud of him and his team. I don't know how he gets that jazzy haircut because he's been on the run between Walgan and here. He's had a very huge few weeks, but the results have been fantastic. So thank you to the General Manager and all the staff that have been involved and the councillors for their support during that time. And the community in general have been amazing. You know, I think they were very aghast at first as to think how they're going to cope, but there's so many people that have been telling us, you know, how easy it was when they really found their electrical appliances. So thank you. Anybody else to speak?
Yes, I'd like to take up that last point you made. I'd like to congratulate the people of Lithgow, people who took in their neighbours, took in their friends, you know, offered them a shower with their solar water heaters, and when the gas was out, you know, gave them had extra people in for meals and just, you know, for friendship, and it just became a very, very community. You know, it seems weird, isn't it? But it seems like it became a community event and brought people together. So it's good to see how that happens in a community like ours.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I totally agree with you. We are a very resilient community when we're under pressure. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? Councillor McGee?
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Leslie. It was a great uniting event. But also I'd like to acknowledge, you know, how the collaboration with some of the volunteer organisations like the Lions, Bill Evans from the Lions Club, working with Gemina down at the showers, it was just a fantastic job all round. You know, the barbecues they put on, it was just much appreciated by a lot of people. So, yeah, a great result for everyone in the end.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce.
Just to further Councillor Coleman's comments, it would be good to see us working, Lithgow LGA, working with Oberon and Bathurst to recover some of the costs as a united team and a much stronger team. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 9.4, Finance and Assets Report. Could I have somebody move this, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it.
Councillor Marnie and Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Marnie, would you like to speak to this?
I won't say much on it other than this is what's become a bit of a practice, or is a practice, with our council. Again, we've got a situation where someone knowingly and hasn't attempted to gain commercial benefit from excess water use. It's obviously a breakage under concrete for one of our registered charities. So I appreciate the council staff report and their consideration that we approve a water account rebate of that amount. So thank you to the staff for their report.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Goodwin.
No, nothing from me.
Anybody else wishing to speak to this motion? Yes, thank you. Councillor Marnie, right of reply? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Oh, Councillor Goodsell, did you want to speak? Yeah, all right. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried, thank you. 9.4.2, Options for a Sustainable Future. Notification to IPART. Could I have somebody please move
Happy
this?
to move.
Councillor Goodsell and Councillor McGee. Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. This is a little bit long, so please bear with me, but I'm trying to do my very best to explain a difficult and sensitive issue to the community. So this is a difficult but necessary decision for Council to make tonight, one that has plagued me daily since February. I'll start by saying that I feel for every single ratepayer in our local government area who will have to tighten their purse strings even further with consideration to increases in nearly every aspect of our day-to-day lives. Interest rates, fuel, power, groceries, the list goes on. I understand our community is already elevated after enduring the last 3 years of bushfires, floods, COVID, many natural disaster declarations and recently a gas outage. To ask you again to put your hand in your pocket hits me to the core. I also belong in these categories. A single homeowner with a medium income and a mortgage, I too will be impacted. A shortfall of $4.7 million has been identified in Council's annual general revenue, together with a need for $1.25 million to ensure Council's ongoing financial sustainability for building capacity within the organisation and facilitating economic resilience in our local government area gives us that total of $6 million. It's not a debt but a shortfall. Asset management is a costly and complicated process, and we have a significant backlog. Our local government area has a road network that combined together would stretch from Lithgow to the Gold Coast, as the General Manager has mentioned many times, enduring geographical and topographical challenges. A significant portion of the increased revenue with a rate rise will be dedicated to road maintenance, in which 80% of our residents believe to be important. To continue to operate as we currently are, or to support option 2, to me, I understand Council's statement, it is unsustainable. For me not to support this rate rise, with the residential, businesses and farming land having an increase of 27.7%, including the 3.7% rate peg, in my opinion would have devastating long-lasting impact, and it'll be very hard to, or if impossible, to come back from. And if this happened, this would mean council staff would immediately begin the process of identifying where the $4.7 million worth of cuts would come from, cutting from current services. Distinguishing essential services from discretionary services is almost an impossibility. Many services provided by council are statutory and they're unable to be reduced, and some are classified as discretionary and are able to be reduced. Who are we as councillors to decide if a service is discretionary on behalf of every ratepayer? To me, it is vital all services are retained and a clear direction is prepared for our future. Also, we will not gain the $1.25 million needed for transition and financial resilience into our city's future. For many years, we've been classified not fit for the future, and we have not had the ability to effectively provide day-to-day services and, just as importantly, prepare our community heading into the future, transitioning away from traditional industries. Applying for grants for our communities has been constrained for some time, as the government often require dollar-for-dollar contributions, which we do not have. Here I must applaud the General Manager, Mr Craig Butler, who has been dedicated and relentless in stripping back all council operations to identify a significant structural problem, and he's worked tirelessly with his staff to put measures in place to rectify the many years of Lithgow City Council attempting to operate at a zero budget and to try and prepare our city for the future. Many regional councils are under financial pressure. As councillors, we have had a multitude of briefings over the last 10 months concerning this. Mr Butler and his executive leadership team and a team of financial and rating experts have been available with support and time for explanation and understanding, and I would like to personally thank them for that. These are the reasons that I will be supporting this permanent special rate variation application to IPART. Won't be too much longer. From the 1st of August to the 10th of October, councillors overwhelmingly decided communication to the community was key, and a comprehensive consultation program began, inclusive of every single ratepayer. A letter to every ratepayer, a series of information sessions staged across the length and breadth of our local government area, social media engagement, and informative factual video presentation, pop-up cafes, etc. As much as council could do, they did do. This has also satisfied IPART's requirements, but at the forefront of my mind was the smothering of our community with factual information. An independent and statistically relevant and random survey was conducted, which reflected 42% of those surveyed supported option 1, the rate rise, which is heartening. 58% supported option 2. Importantly, though, 80% of those surveys believed that improving and maintaining roads, curb and guttering is a key priority for council. So even though 58% wished for no rate rise, they also acknowledged that improving and maintaining roads, curb and guttering was a priority, which would not be manageable with no action taken. I note the proposal in the business paper also includes an ambitious target for ongoing productivity improvements within council organisation. I'm on the current Financial and Operations Committee, and I will continue to push staff for outcomes and communication in and around particular asset management. I'm pleased there also have been fruitful discussions with the mining and power generation businesses. Those rates are proposed to be increased much more significantly than households, farms and businesses. They have acknowledged that they have a shared vision with this council for Lithgow to be a strong and resilient city. I welcome the concept of a future fund to assist with this and for these sectors to be at the table into the future. It gives me great hope going forward. Thank you again, Mr. Butler and Mayor Statham, for walking up to this to gain the greatest benefit, a fair benefit for our community. Imagine the possibility to have the funds to leverage government to invest directly into our community. With the key stakeholders on board, I believe this proves the validity of the consultation process. Consideration was also given to the ability to pay for the ratepayer. We have a large elderly cohort, and the pensioner rebate has been increased by $50 from $250 to $300, which will see some of those ratepayers actually paying less and not more. I do understand the ability to pay may not be inclusive of every ratepayer, and that is the difficult, disheartening part of this decision. Looking at this holistically gives me great hope and the knowledge that this council will not leave a negative financial legacy behind us, and that there is real hope and the possibility of prosperity for our local government area after decades of bobbling along the bottom. We've heard that many times, just surviving. Long-term view with a sound governance and financial resilience. It will enable growth industry and the provision of the day-to-day services at a standard we all deserve for this beautiful local government area we all call home.
That was like listening to a novel, Councillor Goodsell. It was very good. Thank you. Councillor McGee, thank you.
Yes. Well done. No, that was awesome. Yeah, I'd like to just reiterate the seriousness of it. You know, it doesn't just affect ratepayers, it affects renters as well. It's everyone who lives in this LGA will be affected by this. However, on the positive side, you know, like with the positive feedback from the extensive community consultation that was undertaken by council, you know, the mayor, staff, the general manager especially, you know, these things, it will just contribute to the prosperity of the LGA. Once again, with the mayor and the GM going to big business for one-on-one meetings, you know, and to get their support, you know, to supply future funds for the LGA, you know, to secure our future. These things are all extremely positive, and it just puts perspective. We've got the Lithgow Emerging Economy Project, you know, coming to a head. We'll be able to actually do something, and as Councillor Goodwin pointed out before, the pressure on the directors, you know, to hear the excitement in Director Edgecombe's voice when he spoke of what he may be able to accomplish with these extra funds, you know, the people on the ground, you know, whereas, you know, it's good what we will hopefully be able to accomplish and be accountable to the people for this. You know, we want to see these runs on the board, you know, that people can really see and will be proud of their LGA, just like on the weekend, you know, with the gas outage, you know, working together and feeling a part of council. And so I think that, you know, that community consultation was paramount to accomplishing that. And I think that everyone did a fantastic job, so I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone wishing to speak against this? For this?
I'll speak.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
The community was given two options. Option 1, service levels maintained, and option 2, service levels reduced. I think this was misleading, and it gave a misleading response. In fact, there were at least 27 options, 1% for every rate rise. But that was not put to anyone. We were just given these two broad, the community was just given these two broad positions and told, take a choice. And that's the vote that's been taken, the surveys have been taken. And this financial crisis has been apparent for at least the last 10 years. And you've been mayor for the last 5 of them, for 4 or 5 of them. But again, And of course, we have many, many problems, but every time I try to raise the issue of our financial problems, such as cost shifting from the state government, I get ruled out of order. And yet, it's basic to our costs. You can't rule those things out of order, but you can rule them out of order, but they don't go away. They're still there. And these matters need to be addressed. But we have our responsibilities. Everyone knows that our roads are a disaster, and we have your mayoral minute tonight to confirm this. We also know that stormwater damage and flooding is horrendous. No one should have sewage in their homes. These matters must be addressed. So I have an amendment to this motion, which is that we add a point 6 and a point 7. Point 6, that for the next 2 years, all income raised from the special rate variation in excess of the 3.7% rate peg be allocated to the construction, renewal, repair and maintenance of roads, including curbing and guttering, and the construction, renewal, repair and maintenance of sewage and stormwater drains and systems. The ratio of this expenditure to be 70% for roads and 30% for drains. And, point 7, a comprehensive and independent audit of the special rate variation expenditure on roads and drains be undertaken every 6 months, and that this audit be brought to the council and published on the council website. I'd like to speak to the amendment, if I may, and I have a personal observation.
I need a seconder for that, thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
I have a personal observation. Kirkley Street was resealed in the recent
Excuse me for interfering, Councillor Leslie. Do you have a copy of this to give to Trinity Newton? Thank you.
I have it written out. Can I?
Yes, certainly. Read
Actually, I
from
can
that
pass
and
it up now. Could you pass it up?
Thank you.
Yeah. Of a personal observation, Kirkley Street was resealed in recent weeks, and it's a nice job. But I think it won't last. The ceiling to me, and I'm not an engineer, but the ceiling of the road to me seemed to be thin and is likely to break up in the next few years, and we'll be back where we were in the previous time with council trucks coming down and repairing them bit by bit over time. But what I think should have happened, and what I'm hoping can happen, is that when a road like Kirkley Street is to be sealed, then the residents of Kirkley Street and the residents of Stockade Place and Surveyors Close, also and any other people who regularly use the street, should be asked, do you want to get a quick fix on the road here, but you'll know that in due course we'll have to do it again, or do you want to wait perhaps a year or two, but we spend twice the amount of work, we may do twice the amount of money, we may do half the amount of work, but the road itself will be well built and will last 8 to 10 times as long. Now, that mathematics is good for our financial position. It's a good long-term goal to take. We do the job once and we do it right. That's not what's happening at the moment. There's too much out there trying to fix the potholes. Well, let's just get rid of all the potholes and fix the roads. The same with the sewage and the stormwater canals. As I said, no one deserves to have sewage in their property. But this amendment will fix that. This amendment will ensure that that the money, all the excess money, apart from the 3.7% that the state government has determined is sufficient for local governments to run their business, that's their decision, not mine. They pick the 3.7%. That's their rate peg. The rest of that money is the decision of this council to go for, in residential rates, for an extra 27%. We need to ensure that that 27% extra money is used and used effectively and used on our core responsibilities. Roads and stormwaters and sewage problems. That's where it needs to be done, and that's where it needs to be fixed, and that's what we need to do with this special rate variation. Any other one is you have no proof, no guarantee of exactly how the money's done. Put it in writing, and it's there forever.
Mr. Gurney would like to clarify something. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Just with regard to the 0.6 and 7, which are on the screen, there's mention there of sewerage. The general fund can't be used to fund sewerage works. That's funded from the sewer fund and sewer income. I'm not sure if that was meant to be stormwater and roads. It's just how it's reading at the moment on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney.
Yes, I'm happy to have that amended, but can I ask a question? The council has taken money out of the sewerage funds to put into general purpose. Why is the funds able to go one way but not the other?
Mr. Gurney.
Through you, Mayor Statham. I assume that that is the tax equivalent dividend that council resolved on some time ago.
It did come out of the sewerage fund,
Yes,
didn't it?
yes, that's correct. That is permissible under the competitive neutrality legislation of the Commonwealth Government. That councils can take that with the approval of the Department of Primary Industry and Environment.
In that case, I will amend my amendment and delete the words sewerage. There's more than sufficient areas to spend the money on stormwater and drainage issues in this town for that 30% of that ratio to be fully fulfilled. So the amendment itself remains viable. The amendment itself still addresses the core responsibilities we have in this council of roads, curbing and guttering of the roads, and of stormwater and drainage issues within our city.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Statham. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the staff who have worked really hard on the community engagement. To have 85% of residents aware of the proposed special rate variation demonstrates that the comprehensive community engagement campaign was effective. To you, Mayor Statham, being the face of the special rate variation took commitment and stamina. You have led the way, working with the General Manager. 42% respondents support option 1. Yeah, you could call this reasonable. However, 58% do not. But what I found interesting is that 85% of residents believe that maintaining roads, curb and guttering is a key priority for this council in this local area. I am, however, very concerned for the residents considering the current cost of living. I was at Coles the other day Bread is between $2.50 and $3.50 a loaf. A normal carton of milk is $1.60. Petrol is over $2 a litre. We've had 6 consecutive rate hikes. Inflation is between 7 and 8%. That is why if we are going to add to the financial burden of our residents, it needs to be on what they believe. And 85% believe that improving and maintaining roads and curb and guttering is a key priority. This is what I believe in, a contract with the community.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this amendment? Thank you. Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'd like to speak against it. I think that, I don't have any confidence in Councillor Leslie's ability, as he admits freely that he's not an engineer. To be making policy like this, I wonder why he didn't do that when he was mayor. Very recently he was mayor for a couple of years and, none of this was done or addressed in that time. So I just don't understand how he can be so sure that his, amendment is the way forward. I think there's a lot more qualified people involved with the managing of this that are a lot more, I would rather hear their version of how we should spend this money. And it most certainly is in the public interest, and it will be transparent.
Thank you, Mayor. I was asked a question, and I believe I need to have the right to answer that.
You won't ask a question.
I was, point of order, I was, words were put into my mouth as why I didn't do these things. I believe I need to be able to answer that.
That means I can too then, does it, Councillor Leslie?
Yes, of course. And that is, I was asked why I didn't do it as mayor. 4 weeks after I became mayor, Lithgow's council's general manager was sacked, with you voting for the sacking of that general manager at a cost of $500,000, and that took all.
That's nothing to do with what I said. I said he wasn't competent.
Otherwise I'm going to embarrass you dreadfully. And you obviously don't know information that I have.
Point of order, Mayor Statham, this has got nothing
It's got nothing to do with that. Councillor McGee, thank you for your remarks. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this? Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor, through you, Mayor Statham, to Councillor Leslie, why is this the first time we've heard of this? Councillor Leslie's been in at least 2 meetings that I've been at. We've had numerous meetings. He's got all our emails. He's got all our phone numbers. And no times he addressed us about this at all, and he wants to bring it up now when he knows that it probably won't get up. Is this just grandstanding? I can't support this at all. We'll have input into how that the money's spent if the special rate variation is approved. He's just made this up now on the spot because he obviously didn't know about the sewerage, so he hasn't spoken to staff about it. So I can't support his amendment at all in any shape or form.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Goodsell.
I'm of the same opinion. I think this is a comprehensive recommendation that's been worked at very hard by staff. I think that to be honest, I don't even understand. To be able to absorb that amount of information straight away on the spot like this when we've had so many briefings. I mean, I've gone to staff that many times about this and every councillor has had the opportunity to do it, and it just looks, I certainly won't be considering it either. It could have been raised when all of us raised questions at information sessions with the General Manager, with any of the ELC team or our experts in financial matters that we've had available since February.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce.
I don't support this either, the amendments. And comprehensive and independent audits. IPART, if I'm, just please correct me, that IPART has to receive a report on where the money is spent. That is pretty comprehensive, and that is is it updated and available to the community?
Through you, Mayor Statham, it is a requirement of any special rate variation determination by IPART that council report on how the funds are spent each year in the annual report, and we also include it in the budget each year.
And those
Thank you, Mr.
reports are
Mayor.
available to the public?
They're published on the website.
Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Marnie?
I understand Councillor Leslie's emphasis on those areas. They're obviously from the community. There are significant points of interest. The percentages are not altogether unlike some of the discussions we've had, with 60% going into transport maintenance and renewal. So, and the stormwater issue combined with its interplay with the sewage, regardless of whether it's funded here or not, two very significant issues. So I understand why Councillor Leslie's raised these matters. I, however, have a few views, but I might talk to those outside of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Leslie, right of reply if nobody else wishes to speak.
The Code of Meeting Practice does not give movers of amendments the right of reply.
Thought you would enjoy the right of reply, Councillor Leslie. I'll put
I'm
the amendment.
happy to take it if you wish to.
I'll decline that, thank you. All those in favour of Councillor Leslie's amendment, so aye, thank you. Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman, against? A division, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Goodsill, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, and Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham, thank you. They were against, so the amendment has been lost. And 4 were the councillors that had their hands up then, so put them up. 4 was Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman. You have to show your hands, please, because it's division. Thank you. Thank you. So the amendment has been lost, and now we'll go back to the motion. Councillor Goodsill, thank you.
Speak on it? I've already spoken. Can
Right.
I speak?
I was a member.
Yeah.
I did the novel.
Can I speak? Yep.
Bryce, thank you.
I don't cherish, this has been the hardest task of our council, and I think we've been on a very hard council in the last 12 months, so didn't envisage this when we decided to run. But anyway, we're here, we've got to make some decisions, and it's really about the future and the legacy that we leave behind. The legacy of previous councils have left us this mess, not us, not the council that sits today. It is going to be hard. Again, I'm a single wage homeowner that will be impacted by this cost. And as I said, I don't take this lightly, but the only thing I really think, apart from the extra income that we're going to get, is the future fund. The fact that the general manager and the mayor have been able to go to our biggest industries, and they are willing to contribute to our futures fund, which will be exciting for our communities, and the fact that it will give us a position of strength to bargain for our transition out of coal and power. They are willing to also wanting to transition their workforce out of coal, out of the powerhouse. It has given us a future. In 2011, Balbone closed. It was our biggest coal mine. Glencore is a huge multinational company. They walked away, they put everyone off, there was no transition, no nothing. People had to find their own jobs, they had to find new employment or leave the area. In 2013, Wang Powerhouse closed. Angus Place went into care and maintenance. Again, we lost some of those people were allocated to other mines or to Mount Piper, but still we lost people out of those positions. We lost that work. Again, there was no transition plan. There was no helping those people get other jobs or evolve into other jobs. This excites me the most about this, is the fact that the coal mines and Mount Piper and those industries want to help us transition, including for their people, which are a huge employment. This fund will give us leverage, will give us a seat at the table in a position of power with money behind us to be able to leverage for other monies and be able to work with these people for the future and benefit of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin?
Mayor Statham, nobody likes a raise like this. It'll impact their financial situation. This is a hard measured and considered decision that we're making here tonight. We've been all talking about the workings of this for the last 6 months. It's occupied numerous information sessions, community consultation, emails and meetings. It's a decision that does not come lightly. However, as a glass half full type of a person, I see a huge opportunity here for Lithgow and the wider area. This is a rise that needed to occur. It needs to be done now. We've had sessions and debated over delaying it, staging it, postponing it, but we can't wait. The time's now financial. The time is now financially to sustain the LGA. We've been a welfare city for far too long and relying on grants. This raise will be able to fund a bank of money, so when the government award us a grant for 50% of the cost, we can deliver the other 50%. The rise that council are asking for will be moved to tangible things that we can see, such as roads, parks, maintenance and essential outdoor staff. The funds should not be moved across areas where people will not get the best bang for their buck. I'm in favour of the rise, as it is a necessary evil. Costs are going up everywhere. Council is no different. We run as a business. We have consulted community, and I understand that there's a great division. However, I have a responsibility not only to look after our present, but also consider the future. I support council in notifying IPART of our intention of a special rate variation.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Just before I put the motion, Councillor Marnie?
Thank you. Like many other councillors, I've laboured over this extensively. I've talked to a lot of people. I've put a lot of thought into this. I understand at the beginning of the conversation, people saw that we were $6.1 million in debt. I just want to acknowledge that the previous council didn't leave us with a debt. However, they left us with a significant structural problem that for us to kick the can down the road was going to continue to only amplify the problem as inflation bites into service costs and so on. I've worked in and out of local government for 30 years. I've been involved in writing special rates variations. I've been involved in delivering environmental levies and other levies. The community need to have a trust. Unfortunately, at this stage, that trust hasn't been earned yet. We've still got 1 in 4 people who are saying that they don't trust the council. I think, for me, one of the key components of this is a clear contract with the community. Very clearly stated how we're using the money, and I appreciate what Councillor Leslie has said. There is a strong desire to address those 2 asset areas, roads, stormwater, and for me personally, sewage. And I know it's not going to get picked up in this, but it's on the turntable as well with the other broken records. We can't have sewage entering people's homes. We have operated under 10 consecutive operational deficits. I can't turn my back on that and look away. I will always own my decisions, and I'll explain my decisions to anyone who wants to hear. I think it's important that we do what's right. It won't be popular in certain sections. I may not get elected again, but I'd rather serve a term where I've improved the well-being of the council rather than make a decision that doesn't get an earful for me somewhere. My support, however, and I'll just also make one other point. I know Councillor Leslie may not always be appreciated by everyone, But I do recall, one of the conditions I made for myself is I had to sit through the entire last term, every council, and read every business paper before I decided to become a councillor. I do recall Councillor Leslie talking about the lack of rates that were paid by coal mining companies, and that wasn't necessarily well received. So I understand where you've come from as far as your percentages. My conditional support, and I don't hold anyone to ransom, but these are things that I have to see. We do have to have that clear contract with the community. We will have a significant governance issue with the Future Fund. We're talking about a significant amount of money being set aside for us as a council to make decisions around. I need to see greater community involvement in those decision-making processes. I also need to know that I'm going to take a trust step here if I support it, that the asset management plans must be completed and their accompanying service plans to give us a genuine exposure to what our costs are to run the joint. At the moment, we've done a like for like as much as it is possible with other councils, and we've looked at what their income is. That's a separate issue to doing a household audit of what we've got and what it costs to maintain it. I have to be completely confident that's going forward. The other thing is the capacity to pay, and I appreciate Councillor Bryce and Councillor Goodsell talking to that issue. It's not a simply defined issue. It is people in the workforce. It is people with single incomes with high exposure in their cost of living, which also Councillor Coleman spoke to. I'm concerned when we find particularly single-age pensioners living in their home with very low income. I have to be confident with that capacity to pay issue. And I would suggest that we probably have a review in a very short time frame to look at that issue. And the other one, which might not be an obvious one for some people, but I spent a bit of time talking to people out of the business sector. Small business has had 36 months of unprecedented economic disruptors to their business. I would suggest that we need to consider a deferral of the introduction of the rise in small business rates. I'd also like us to look at some of the current fees that we charge to small business and whether we can see them being embodied in the 26.5% rate increase. I know there's a particular rate that was introduced around Main Street car parking. And so we've got to be careful that we don't weather that already thin and tenuous grip on being a sustainable business. So they're the points that are critical for me. It's troubled me a lot, this whole thing. So whilst I can bring support to it, I need to see this rigour in place and I need to see the rigour beyond it. But I can't let us kick the can down the road for the 11th, 12th and 13th year and then say to a new incoming council, here's a financial structural problem that we saw and we walked on by and we're passing it on to you to take on. So I think everyone can see that my indication is I am going to support it. I know I'll be criticised for that, but I feel I need to do what I think is right, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Money. Councillor Goodsell, right of reply.
No, I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
Oh, I was waiting for another big talk. Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? I'll call the division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Leslie. I just would like to take a brief moment to say I'm sure there'd be people at this desk that are very relieved and very thankful and grateful. Congratulations to Martin Rush, the economist. He's an amazing guy that was hired by a general manager who had faith in him. He guided us and councillors through this very difficult time. Mr. Gurney and his financial team went back only 10 years with a great cost of time, effort and council staff. I have word as late as last night from 1995 this started. It's an operational and management situation. It's not a councillor or a mayoral position to say, we're going broke, what are we going to do? Unfortunately, the previous managements let it go. This is where Craig Butler came in, our general manager. I can't say how privileged we are to have a general manager that loves this town, does not live here, but has grown to be part of our community. I trust him. He's transparent. I've had many discussions with him. I believe he's the right man to lead us into the future. So from the 1995 deficit and all those years later, we finally have won the lottery. We couldn't take a ticket in the lottery, but that is how I feel tonight, because I didn't want to leave this term in 3 years, seeing us going to administration in 2.5 years. So I'm very proud of all the councillors, because we've all got an opinion. Nobody wanted this. I have been absolutely beside myself. When the general manager came to me in February, I've been on council 2 weeks. And he looked at me, I thought, oh, this isn't going to be good. And it wasn't. I thought, oh my goodness. And from that moment forward, I didn't know what to think for the first month. And then I thought, do I have a choice? I do, but I didn't. I want Lithgow local government area to be prosperous, to have a future. I've got a vision. I'm sure all the councillors have a vision or they wouldn't be here tonight. But congratulations to our hard-working staff and the girls, Trinity and Sarah, to Mr McGrath, Mr Gurney and Jonathan and the other managers of their teams for, I guess, supporting the general manager, but most of all, thank you to the councillors. You're now going to have a prosperous journey into the future. Thank you. You're supposed to clap for all of you. Come on. No, seriously, it's a hard decision. No one has taken this lightly. And the general manager just said thank you. So let's move on. Thank you. 9.4.3, classification of land. Can I have a mover? Thank you.
I'll move it.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce, would you like to speak to that?
There's not much really to say about this. It's just a standard process, and the Act requires community land to fall within one of the following categories, and it's just a recategorisation of that land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodsell. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on this matter? If there's no dissent, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. 9.4.5, proposal to enter a licence agreement with COC Limited. Page 46. Oh, apologies for that. My pages didn't come apart. Okay, 9.4.4, quarter one budget review.
I'll move it.
Happy to
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
Thanks.
A seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodsell, thank you. Councillor Bryce.
Just go on with the recommendation to note the report.
Thank you.
3 points.
Councillor Goodsell.
Yeah, it's our quarterly finance report, and it just demonstrates that our Chief Financial Officer is on top of things, all over things. Our finances are in order according to the Local Government Act, and they're also presented to us at last week's Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
I'd like to make a comment about the last paragraph on page 48. Given that we've just endorsed the rate rise proposal to move forward to IPART, and assuming that that is successful, I'm noting a routine dividend that comes back into the council. Councillor Leslie quite rightly spoke to the matter of sewage. I would like to, I don't know if I can do this in this statement, but I'd like to see a report come back to council on how that dividend could be used to rectify some of the unacceptable issues that are going on in our sewage system.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
So we'd need to either get the support of
If Councillor Marnie moves an amendment to that effect, I'd be happy to second it.
First of all, would the mover of the motion, which was Councillor Bryce, accept Councillor Marnie's other point on that? Thank you.
Yes.
Good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? No? Councillor Bryce, right of reply?
No, all good.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie? No? So there was Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce, Division, okay. Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie. It's actually unanimous, thank you. Councillor Goodsell's out of the room, but it was her motion. Yes, thank you. Now, what one did I miss? So, I'm up to this one here, COC.
yeah, page 51.
Yes, proposal to enter a licence agreement with COC Limited. Thank you. Could I
I'll move
somebody-
it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
Before I start, I just would like to have one question answered. With this land being licensed to COC Limited, will it impede on the company that runs up at the State Mine Gully, the railway workshops up there, will it impede their access to the main lines?
That might have to be taken on notice, I think, unless Mr. Edkin can...
No.
Can you answer that? Yes, Councillor Bryce, we'd have to take that on notice. That would then...
Can I make an amendment that we defer this until we get that information, because that will change how this is looked at.
significantly.
Yep. Is
Is there a seconder for deferral?
Is there a seconder, please, to defer this? Councillor McGee? Okay, Councillor Bryce, are you happy with that?
yeah, I am.
Yes. Would you like to speak to it more?
I'm happy for the licence to go ahead, as long as it doesn't impede with another company accessing the main lines. That is, stopping competition and another workshop from working. And being able to do their core business.
Councillor McGee, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I think that's the core of the matter, as long as it's fair on everyone that actually uses it currently and doesn't impede anyone else's livelihood.
Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, Ms. Statham, I might leave it until we, I just wanted to ask about the actual land. On the first photo that we have, is that the land we're voting on, or is it that strip of land on the second page?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's the strip on the second page.
Why then wouldn't it be prudent to go down to that whole lot if we're going to support this later on? But we can talk this out, if we're going to defer it, we can talk about this at another day.
So can I have a vote, please, that we're going to defer this?
Can I
Councillor Marnie?
I'm a little bit reluctant to support a deferral, and I understand you very rightly asked that question. I know the area is an activity of numerous business operations in that locality, and I don't want to go into a whole lot of details around that, but I don't want to have a situation that we're waiting till January to provide those parties with advice as to how we're going forward with this matter. I can't say with any certainty, but I'm just concerned that this may cause commercial issues, as you've rightly alluded to, Councillor Bryce. So I'm not sure how we can progress the issue, whether we can put forward an amendment allowing for information to come forward, but as long as it doesn't provide an adverse outcome to any of the interested parties, that's the problem. I don't want them to have to sit there till February to...
Excuse me, Councillor Marnie, apologies for interrupting. Mr McGrath, would you like to address this? Thank you.
Thanks, through you, Mayor Statham. I was just pointing out that while the recommendation may need some amendment, this report is to put the licence agreement on public exhibition for comment.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Happy with that, Councillor Bryce? Yes. All right. Anybody else wishing to speak to this
Could I
then?
ask a question?
Yes, Councillor.
I note there's no attachments, which I tried to work it out. Does the letters COC stand for something, or is that it?
We interpret that to be the registered name. What the acronym stands for, we don't know. But that's a registered name. If I can we need to clarify, Mayor.
Because Councillor Bryce, you've suggested we defer it. Would you like to retract that and we'll put it to the vote and wait and see what happens when the 28 days are up?
If Councillor...
Sorry, I can't make a decision on something that may interfere with someone else's business.
I think what Mr McGrath might be alluding to is that if it gets passed today, obviously council will have to address the situation in case what you're suggesting could be correct. We don't want to be in that situation. If it goes on exhibition for 28 days, I'm sure the state mine people will be spoken to in regard to that, and if they're objecting to that, then we know there is a problem. Rather than...
Sorry. I spoke to one of the parties today, and I asked that question in relation to access to the property for other businesses, and I was informed by one of the businesses that the access to the property that the other business has is via the back of Lake Pillins, up that road and down the top of coming in from the opposite direction.
Yeah,
General Manager might just give it some advice.
So just to speak to your concern, Councillor Bryce, because you're seeking deferral of the whole matter, Council not taking a decision to issue the licence tonight. It's just proposing preliminary approval, then exhibition. So the State Mine Group, they could make a submission to that exhibition, then the matter will come back. And so it will become apparent through the exhibition process if there's any issue with that other party, and the council can elect, if they're concerned with that, not to proceed with the issuing of the licence at that point.
Sorry, can I make an amendment if we're not going to defer?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Goodwood.
Oh, okay.
I'll withdraw my amendment I'll withdraw my amendment as long as we make sure that the people at the State Mine Gully have a say in this, some information is sent to them.
Just a moment, please. There might be some more information.
No.
Right. So, Councillor Bryce, are you willing to move the motion for this to go ahead in relation to it'll go out on 28 days exhibition, and if there's a problem, then we address the problem? I think it was Councillor Goodsell that seconded that. No, it was Councillor Goodwin. Sorry, it was Councillor Goodwin.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay, so we're back now to the original, which Councillor Goodwin. Yes.
I would like to make an amendment to the original.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, you did. Yes.
Can I ask a question? Yeah.
Because Councillor McGee
Sorry.
Seconded Councillor Bryce's amendment.
It's gone.
And now that's gone, that's been withdrawn, so now it's you seconded the motion. The original motion. Yes.
Can I make an amendment to the original motion? If I'll just put it, that, I know it's getting late. On the first photo that we have, that's the entire site, if I'm correct, of what we want to do operational, change to operational from, is that correct? But on the second photo that we have, that's the land that we're voting on tonight. Eventually, for the licence, eventually we will be voting on that whole site at some point in time. Would it be prudent to vote on that? Why wouldn't we be voting on that whole site now? Is there a reason? And my amendment would be to vote on that whole site rather than... Sorry.
I believe the point 6 has that intention because it.
Would that mean we have to come back
Council's
to another
resolved.
meeting to vote for that next bit? If we can vote for the whole lot now?
We're commencing a process by point 6, to convert the land from community to operational.
Right. So it'll be a stage process, is that my understanding?
No, it's the whole lot.
For that whole lot there? Okay. If that's for the whole, I'll withdraw my amendment.
Point 5 clearly states, note that the matter will be returned to council for further consideration
Yes.
if any submissions are received during the public exhibition period.
Okay. I'll withdraw my amendment for the time being.
All right.
I'll get
Thank you,
further
Councillor
information.
Goodwin.
Yeah.
So anybody else wishing to speak on the matter?
I just have a question, but Councillor Leslie.
I'm going to vote against this because there's nothing in this report that explains to me why it's important to take this away from community land.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
I'm happy to speak to Mayor Statham.
Yes, Councillor Goodsell.
I thought it was that this group have been using this land under a verbal agreement since 2001, and we're now just they're actually seeking a licence agreement, and it needs to be reclassified as to operational land. I just thought it was as simple as that.
Mr Butler.
Yeah, Council's in-house property and legal services officer is forensically looking and cleaning up all of these historical situations. And we have a situation here where the land is being used without the appropriate licences and classification. The brutal approach would be to deny both parties that use the rail line today no access until the land's classified. So the officer has recommended a pragmatic way to move the matter forward. Ultimately, the licence will come back. If the councils require any issue to be further elaborated, please bring that to my attention and we'll canvass that in the report that's brought back. And then further down the line, the council will have decisions in relation to whether it reclassifies the land from community to operational.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Is everybody clear with this?
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Coleman.
How does this affect, and I don't know whether this can be answered or not, but, and I understand that it'll be going out to the public, and I have no issue with that, but how does this affect Mrs. and Mrs. McCullen, who sent me emails in regards to noise complaints? Is it going to affect them, or do we know how it affects them?
Yes, I've heard from the same people and I think that they will be able to do something with the submission. Mr McGrath?
Through you, Mayor Statham, I believe there's already a process in place to address that noise issue. So I think that would occur regardless of actually this process, whether they have if they're in breach of a licence, then we would have to take action under the EP&A Act. If there are genuine noise breaches, for example, or dust or, pollution of that nature. So my view is that this won't make any difference to that action.
So can I ask another question, please, Mayor Statham? So is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. So actually a licence would be beneficial.
Through you, Mayor Statham, it cleans up an anomaly that's obviously been uncovered by the property officer that needs to be addressed and documented correctly.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Thank you, Mr McGrath. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this? Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell? No. Right of reply, Councillor Bryce?
Just wait. So this licence is only for the use of land. The licence that covers the noise, dust, pollution is an EPA licence, which is a separate entity and that is attached to the business, not to the land. Is that correct? Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. A division, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodsell, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Statham, and against is Councillor Leslie. Thank you. (9.5) Policies and governance.
I'll move. Happy to move.
Sorry, who moved first? Councillor Bryce, I think, was just in before. You're happy to second that, Councillor Coleman? Councillor Bryce, heard her first, definitely heard her voice first.
It's just louder.
Councillor Bryce.
Nothing to talk about. These are just the dates for the meetings.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, I reserve my right.
Yeah. Any dissent? Any discussion? If not, Councillor Goodsell?
I did have something to add if others thought it was necessary. The recommendation is that Council adopt the schedule of ordinary meetings of Council being the fourth Monday of each month. And I'd like to add, and consideration of key committees of Council be scheduled for timely reporting of minutes to the full Council.
Sorry, could you please say that again, Councillor
Well,
Goodsell?
it was what the General Manager alluded to the other day, that even if there's 5 weeks in a month, like say for instance last week we had a Finance Committee meeting and it really should have been rescheduled to the week before, so we have reports coming to the full meeting of Council. Councillor Leslie's raised this many times, and it's actually, I've just got that amendment straight from the commentary.
Councillor Bryce, would you be happy to take the point that Councillor Goodsell has suggested?
Oh, I suppose so. Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. You happy with that, Councillor Goodsell?
Well, I'm happy to take the General Manager's word for it, but I think it'd be good to be in writing that when, you know, if it does happen, we'll say, well, we did move those dates and we were going to allocate and schedule the key committee meetings around and move them, if necessary, to allow for timely reporting for the minutes to come back to full meetings of Council.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell and Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
I have a question about that.
Yes, Councillor Leslie, thank you.
How does one do that with a Finance Committee meeting that's scheduled to meet every 6 weeks? But that's not flexible, and that's what we've got.
Mr Gurney, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The terms of reference for the Finance Committee requires a meeting at least each 2 months. We have been working on a 6-week cycle, so we can be flexible with the dates and put that to the committee.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. Any other person wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Just to reiterate some of the comments, just need to ensure that the committee meetings are sequenced, so we don't have them on top of each other. We did have one day where we had 3 meetings on top of each other. Whilst there's some efficiencies there, being in 2 places in one time is not particularly easy. That's the only comment.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce, right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Gurney, for being a bit flexible about the Finance Committee. That's great. We'll get those reports back to Council in a timely manner. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Council Committee Terms of Reference Update Model Social Media Policy 2022. Could I have somebody move this?
I'll move this.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce?
This social media policy was adopted by the council in a meeting, so therefore it needs to go out to the committees. I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin?
No, I've got nothing.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Yes. I'm going to speak against it. I'm not going to go through the discussion we had around the introduction of it for our councillors. We have volunteers who are volunteering onto our committees. I would have liked a bit more consultation with those volunteers coming onto our committees before the social media policy came to us or the terms of reference update came to us to make those decisions on their behalf. I'd rather make decisions with them, and I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce?
No, I'm right.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor, yes, this is the B division. Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Coleman. Thank you. Code of Conduct Statistics for 2021 to 2022.
Happy to second.
Goodsell. Who moved that? Did you? Yes. Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that?
Just briefly, a very encouraging report that all matters were resolved relatively early and finalised at the onset. So I was just wondering where on page 59 of 68, where the $2,500 comes into it.
Through you, Mayor Statham, that $2,500, we have to include staff time in the costs that we report to the Office of Local Government. So that $2,500 is an estimate of staff time to resolve those 6 matters. It is an estimate only, too, I might add.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Councillor Bryce.
No, I'm right.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
You've answered that question, and thank you. Can we get the statistics divided up between the councillors and the GM? And I don't want any more detail. I just want to know what sector of our organisation from a governance point of view that these are occurring. So if it's a operational issue and it's come against the general manager rightly or wrongly, or if it's come against the council, I would prefer to have those statistics separated.
Mr. McGrath.
Through you, Mayor Statham, I'm not sure we are allowed to break it up in that way. This table that's included in this report is the template that's prescribed by the Office of Local Government. So it's exactly the same data that we're required to submit to the department. I'd have to take that on notice, Councillor, just to work out whether we're able to do that. I can put a call into the...
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? Right of reply, Councillor Goodsell.
No, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Call the division. Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Goodsell, Councillor Bryce. It's unanimous. Thank you. 9.5.4, Managing Unreasonable Conduct by Complainants Policy. Somebody
move that
please
way.
move this. Councillor Goodwin.
I'll second it.
Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk to it, Mayor Statham.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsell. Oh, you sound so.
Yeah, no. No, I'm not going to talk to it.
All right, thank you. Any dissent? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. 9.5.5, review of policy 5.4, enforcement policy.
Just I'll move it.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce?
Nothing to talk about.
No, I'll move to adopt it.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. The division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Unanimous. 10.1. Thank you. Minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee.
I'll move it. I was there.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Seconded.
Happy to.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce?
Just adopt note the minutes. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsell? Any dissent? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Sorry.
Councillor Marnie?
Just briefly, just noting the discussion around asset management and in particular a staff allocation, bushland management officer that was discussed at that. So again, as we go into these asset management planning and so on, certainly like to take some advice from the community sector on that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 10.2, Economic Development Committee meeting minutes. Thank you. Have somebody move?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. A seconder, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Councillor McGee? Councillor Bryce?
No, just adopt the recommendation.
All right, thank you. Councillor McGee? No? Any? Councillor Marnie?
Sorry. I'd like to make an amendment to the recommendations, and I'd like a report brought back to council in regard to privately run nature-based recreation events and their relationship to ecotourism, an ecotourism licensing scheme. We have, and we've discussed this on a number of occasions, where commercial activities are running within our reserves, and then, yep.
Marnie, we're endorsing the minutes. We're not here for a discussion about what should or shouldn't be in the minutes.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll
a proper
bring
course would bring for you to bring that back. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
As a notice of motion. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Otherwise, Councillor Bryce?
Sorry, point of order. These minutes aren't these minutes to be confirmed at this?
That's correct.
And therefore,
But we
decisions made at these meetings are surely available for amendment and change at this meeting.
You can't change the minutes.
There's only a committee. It's not a council
You
meeting.
can't change minutes, Councillor Leslie.
But
Doesn't
we're
matter.
dealing
It's a P&C meeting. You cannot change minutes. I wouldn't think.
But I think what Councillor Marnie's talking about is he wants to actually change the recommendation of not the minutes, but change the recommendation of that's been proceeded at a committee meeting, not a council meeting.
That was brought up in the Environmental Committee meeting, not the Economic Development Committee meeting. It wasn't brought up in the Economic Development.
For the benefit of probably our sanity tonight, thank you, Councillor Leslie, for your advice. However, I will bring a notice of motion separate to the minutes, and but I'll foreshadow that notice of motion coming.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. Would like right of reply?
Yeah, as I said, that topic in particular was brought up in the Environmental Advisory Committee. It was never brought up in the Economic Development meeting, so we can't change those minutes.
No, that's right. All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. A division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. TALC committee meeting minutes, the 3rd of November. Can I have somebody move these minutes be correct? Thank you.
Happy to.
I'll second.
Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that?
I would not.
Councillor Bryce?
The same.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak to it? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. We come now to business of great urgency.
No, there's 10.4, Mayor. And I'm happy to move it.
Oh, community development.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman?
Thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, Community Development Committee, the meeting was very robust. There was a lot of discussion, especially around the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, which we adopted earlier, Planning for Australia Day, which was great, and a music event at the Blast Furnace in late 2023. All great topics, great committee, it all works well, and I really enjoy this committee.
Also, there was planning for the opera, I believe.
That's the music event at the Blast Furnace. You chaired this meeting, remember?
Yes, I think there's going to be 2 events.
Yeah, so it's a great discussion around that.
Councillor Bryce?
No, I agree with Councillor Coleman. It's a great committee, a lot of positive discussion around a lot of events.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Leslie.
The music event at Blast Furnace, was the funding of that event discussed, and what was the outcome of that discussion?
It's an ongoing discussion at the moment, Councillor Leslie,
And why would that be?
because we're very particular about what we're going to give money to, where we're going to get the money from. Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bryce will reiterate what I've just said, I'm sure. Councillor Coleman?
So the answer to my question is you won't answer my question.
I will answer your question, I just did.
Well, therefore, the question
What was your question again, please?
The question was the funding of the music event discussed?
Absolutely it was.
And what was the outcome of that discussion?
Hopefully we'll know in the next 6 weeks, or probably early January.
Then why didn't I get that answer the first time around?
It will come to council for you to see, Councillor Leslie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman, right of reply?
Thanks, son.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. A division, thank you. Thank you, unanimous. It's a great.
I have one.
Councillor Coleman?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. Okay. Lithgow Ambulance Station. This is not only a parking issue, but a safety issue for residents around that area and for those who work at the station. I had the pleasure of meeting and catching up with Ron Gavin. They've had intense upgrades at the Lithgow Ambulance Station, and it was state-funded, provided, all kudos to the state government. However, they can't park their vehicles inside the property. They've got 9 vehicles, and they have to be parked all right round the property.
I saw that today.
And after 4 attempts, the surface is still smooth, which means it's a trip hazard. So I've got a list of issues from Ron. It's absolutely crazy the amount of work that's happened there, but the project is just a mess, and it's affecting residents, it's affecting those working there. I've got a family member that works there. She's got to have shoulder surgery now. There's so many issues. We need to write a letter to the state member and bring him up to date with all these issues. The council aren't aware of it. It's not a council project, it was a state-funded project. But we as a council need to advocate on behalf of not only the residents that park in that area, but those who work there. It's a huge issue, and we need to bring the state member up to speed on the issue, because it was state money that provided these upgrades which aren't up to scratch.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. General Manager has suggested with Mr Edgecombe that they will deal with that immediately.
Yeah, great,
So
thank
you
you.
can give
I'm
them
happy
some
to
more
pass
information.
on,
Yes, thank you.
Mayor Statham, I'm happy to pass on the list of concerns that Mr
Yes,
Gavin
so
has
I'm ruling
provided
it
me.
not to be a matter of great urgency. We want it, we're going to. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so,
Restriction
so I've got so Mr Edgecombe's going to call Ron and work through it, because it's really important.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else? Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, Mayor, could we get updated on the road to Walgan Valley, please? Thank you.
Great question, Councillor O'Connor. Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
I'll provide.
And I will address this as a matter of great urgency without any doubt whatsoever.
I did provide an update to all councillors late last week, and not much has changed since then. But I can say in brief that construction on the alternate route is scheduled to start this Wednesday. Our environmental surveys are nearing completion. We've also been in contact with the Minga Wiradjuri Aboriginal Corporation, who are working with us directly to investigate any Indigenous artefacts that might be found in the area. Alongside that work, we're meeting with Golder and Associates, our geotechnical engineers, on Friday to start directing our focus onto the Walgan Road itself as well, and we're also looking at longer term alternate routes into the valley. So if the councillors would like a more detailed briefing session, I'd be happy to provide that at a time that's convenient to you all.
But I'm very pleased to add to that and put on the public record that we've redirected significant resources to the project. We're looking to assign a contract, do the environmental assessment, design a new alternative route as an interim route, and then have it funded by government and delivered in a lightning pace because the current interim access via Coaches Road isn't acceptable, and we're very fearful of that. And I want to acknowledge that we're getting great support from the New South Wales Government. In fact, we have Public Works Advisory working with us, and Jonathan and his team are laying the ground so that there's rapid approval for the funding. So we hope to have the contractor physically starting work around the middle of this week. I'm very pleased to advise that. Still got a few little hurdles to get over, but it's a major effort from this council and government to get that resolved. As soon as we get the design and the contractor going with that piece of work, we want to flick all the experts back to the Walgan Gap Road, because this interim access is not a long-term access, and so we need to get back there and come up with a very quick solution to reinstate it. And then there's a third tier where we're looking for the ultimate solution for Walgan Valley, but that's a longer study and the like. So great, lot of resource commitment, engaging with the community. We've got a human services team, including with a rep from the rural mental health area, going into the valley weekly, and we're really working with the community in a very fine-grained way, trying to find a solution for Emirates and other businesses down in the valley. And like so, we'll keep you updated.
I'm sure every councillor here today would think I'm doing the right thing by accepting this as a matter of great urgency. It has been a long couple of weeks. I feel we're all pretty heartbroken about what's going on, but I'm very proud of Jonathan again, the General Manager, and the gentleman from the Public Works. He's an absolute guru. When they asked what his qualifications were, I think Jonathan and I and the General Manager could not believe this man's qualifications. They are world-renowned, Australia-renowned. And as soon as he came in and said they were all sort of a grand group and they could be watching tonight. As soon as he came into the room and gave his version of this is the only way forward, everyone settled down and started to feel a little bit of relief. And I can understand Councillor O'Connor. We all feel devastated for these people and we want them to be out of there as soon as possible. But I also must congratulate the efficiency of the General Manager, Jonathan Edgecombe, but particularly the two drivers from our council that are going back and down. And I went down there and it's Jonathan did a very good job of negotiating some pretty hairy four-wheel driving, but it was worth every ounce of nervousness when we got together and we saw those people. But these drivers, you know, they're going backwards and forwards 4 trips a day and back out, 2 down, 2 back. Yes, and then they're bringing people out with emergency, you know, doctor's appointments or whatever. We're also delivering gas and fuel and food, and it's been a great effort on behalf of the General Manager and his staff. They've done their very best, and it's been a very difficult time in a lot of people's lives. But anyway, hopefully this time next week they'll be well on the way. And we are very sad that a lot of people's mental health and their family structures have been torn apart by this. On a brighter note, Merry Christmas. The meeting is now closed, and thank you to... oh yes, sorry, Councillor Goodwin?
Sorry, just one really quick matter of urgency, if you deem it so. I sent an email into the TAL committee, seeing it's not sitting next month, the start of the month. It might be until early next year before it sits again. But I believe the phasing of the lights in Main Street and that may only, the phasings of the, you may not declare this a matter of great urgency, but the phasing of the lights in Main Street and the one in Maud Street, they're out of kilter. You'd be sitting at the lights when there's no one around. Traffic lights.
Yes, I totally agree with that, Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, you're
very distressing.
You're sitting at the lights
very
forever.
patient.
It needs, either an email needs to be sent to RMS. I was going to bring up the TAL committee, but they're not sitting until probably early next year.
I've had a lot of people comment on that over the last 2 weeks. Mr. Jonathan Edgecombe, would you like to speak to that?
I can provide a memo to the council tomorrow, but we have raised this matter with Transport for New South Wales, and they are addressing it. It's an issue with Telstra and the server contact issues with those lights. So I'll provide more detail tomorrow.
I could add to that. I also raised that matter with Jonathan a week, 10 days ago, and I got a response from him that the matter was not a TAL committee matter as such, but he was going to refer the matter on to the appropriate department, the state government department, and they had come out to investigate the matter. I understand it was somebody actually drove into the controlling panel there, and everything went back to ordinary early formats. I mean, basic formats.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie, and also thank you to Ruben from the Mercury for attending our meetings. We appreciate that. And thank you to Trinity and Sarah for the gentleman on the right, and whether it's Sean or Aaron. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.